The boy hid the thermometer under his pillow and asked if she was afraid of his father. Camille Harper was the fifth nurse to walk through those gates, 27 years old, a pediatric home recovery nurse, and the only one who didn't flinch. Black, composed, her lavender scrub pressed clean, her medical bag squared at her hip. She needed this contract to keep her 16-year-old sister fed. Han Tae-kyung waited in the doorway. The Golden Lion, a Korean mafia boss with a black and gold lion, inked down the left side of his neck, disappearing under a white collar, platinum watch, black tailored vest. He contradicted her in front of his sick son, and she did not blink. Disagreements stay away from the patient, she told him. 7-year-old Min Jun threatened to refuse his medicine if she left. She corrected him in the same breath. Medicine is not a bargain. The Golden Lion went silent. He gave her 1 week. Then she noticed it, the boy sharp before each dose, drowsy after. She opened the vials and read the labels twice. The lots didn't match. She held one glass bottle up to the light, and something was wrong. But what she found next, no one in that mansion was ever meant to find. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The gate took 40 seconds to open, and Camille counted every one of them from behind the wheel of a car that was worth less than a month of what this family spent on flowers. She had timed it on purpose. 40 seconds meant cameras. 40 seconds meant a man in a booth deciding whether her face matched the name on a list. She kept both hands on the wheel and her eyes forward, because looking around was what nervous people did, and she had decided in the parking lot of the coffee shop 3 miles back that she would not be nervous today. The drive curved through trees that had been planted to look wild and failed. At the top stood a house that refused to call itself a mansion, and was one anyway. Gray stone, black windows, a door tall enough to drive the little car through. A man in a dark suit opened her door before she reached for the handle. "Miss Harper." "That's me." "You're early." "I'm on time," she said. "Early is a habit I can't afford to break." He didn't smile. She hadn't expected one. She lifted her structured navy bag from the passenger seat, the medical one with the reinforced base, and slung the strap across her body so both hands stayed free. The cardigan she left in the car, ivory wool in a house like this was a stain waiting to happen, and she had exactly one. They walked her through a foyer with a ceiling she refused to look up at, marble underfoot, cold enough to feel through her clinical whites. She counted doors instead. 6 on the ground floor she could see, a staircase that split, a hallway to the left that a second-suited man stood guarding, without pretending to guard anything. "He's upstairs," the first man said. "The patient or the father?" The man paused half a step. "Both." She followed him up. On the landing, a woman waited with a tablet pressed to her chest like a shield, hair scraped back, the tired eyes of someone who had watched 4 people fail before this one arrived. The house manager, Camille knew the type from every wealthy contract she'd worked, the ones who ran everything and were thanked for none of it. "You read the file," the woman said, not a question. "Twice." "Then you know he's had 4 nurses in 6 weeks." "I know 4 nurses left in 6 weeks, Camille said. "The file didn't say why." The woman's mouth tightened. "The last one didn't say goodbye. She left during his nap. Took her shoes off so the floor wouldn't creak." Camille let that sit, a grown woman sneaking out of a child's sick room in her socks. She filed it under things to understand later and kept her face still. "I don't do that," she said. "They all say that." "I know. But I have a 16-year-old sister and a lease, and neither of them cares whether this house scares me. So I'll be here in the morning." She adjusted the strap on her shoulder. "Where's the boy?" The room they'd given Han Min-jun was too big for a 7-year-old. That was the first thing she clocked. A bed built for a man sat under a window twice her height, and the child in it looked like something left behind. Pale blue cardigan, white shirt, a hospital bracelet still circling a wrist thin enough that it had slid up to his forearm. He was watching cartoons with the sound off. "Hi," she said from the doorway, "because you didn't walk into a kid's space like you owned it. I'm Camille. I'm your new nurse." "I know." He didn't look away from the screen. "You're the 5th. I heard that too. The others were scared. Of what? Now he looked at her. He had his father's eyes. She'd seen the father in exactly one photograph in the file, and she knew it instantly. The same dark almond shape, the same weight to the brow that a child shouldn't have. Of my dad, Minjun said. Camille came in. She left the door open behind her, a small thing, the kind of thing a scared person forgot to do. She set her bag on the chair beside the bed and did not sit yet. I need to check your temperature, she said. Then we'll talk about your dad. I don't have a fever. Then this'll be quick. She reached into the side pocket where the thermometer lived, the digital one she'd cleaned twice that morning, and her fingers found the pocket empty. She checked the other side, the strap pocket, the zippered one. It was gone. She had packed it. She had checked the bag in the car, in the parking lot, she was certain. She'd run her palm across each pocket the way she did before every first shift. And now, 90 seconds into the room, it was gone. She looked up. Minjun was watching her with the flat calm of a child who had already won and was waiting to see how long it took the adult to catch up. His right hand was under the blanket. It had not been under the blanket a minute ago. You took it, she said. He didn't answer. That's a good trick, she said, and she meant it, and she let him hear that she meant it. Fast hands. I didn't even feel the bag move. The corner of his mouth twitched and died. He was fighting it. Here's the thing, though. She pulled the chair a little closer and finally sat, so their eyes were level, so she wasn't a tower standing over him. That thermometer tells me if the medicine is working. If I don't know your number, I'm guessing, and I don't guess about hearts. It's not my heart. His voice went thin. Everybody keeps saying it's my heart. It was your heart. Now it's healing. There's a difference, and the difference is the whole reason I'm here. She held out her open hand, palm up, and left it there. The thermometer, please. He studied her hand like it might be a trap. Are you scared of him? He asked. Camille didn't move her hand. Of your dad? Everybody is. I'm not scared of your dad. She said it plain, no armor in it, because a kid could smell armor. I'm only scared of people who won't listen when a doctor tells them something. Those people I stay away from. Your dad, she tipped her head. I haven't met him yet, so I don't have an opinion. When I do, you'll be the second to know. Who's first? Him. That got her something. Not a smile, but the hand came out from under the blanket, and in the small pale fist was her thermometer, and he placed it in her palm with a seriousness that undid something in her chest she didn't have time for. Thank you, she said. She cleaned the tip while he watched, narrating each step, because kids stayed calm when they knew the sequence, and she ran it across his forehead and read the number, and it was fine. It was exactly fine, and she told him so. See, he said, no fever. No fever, she agreed. But now I know that. Before, I was guessing. Guessing and knowing pay different. She wrote the number on the chart clipped to the bed rail. Where'd you learn to lift a thermometer like that? He shrugged the shrug of a boy who wasn't going to give up his sources. She let it go. She checked his color, his nail beds, the rise and fall of his breath while she pretended to be untangling her stethoscope. She counted his pulse against her watch without touching him, from the flutter at his throat, because he'd flinched when she'd reached the first time, and she wasn't going to make him flinch twice on day one. Everything she needed, she took without asking permission of a body that had already been asked too much. You count without touching, he said. You lift thermometers without asking, she said. We've both got tricks. This time the smile made it all the way out. Small, quick, gone, but it had been there. That was when the temperature of the room changed. She felt him before she saw him. Minjun's smile folded itself away, and his spine went straight against the pillows, and Camille turned toward the door with her hand already moving to the chart, the reflex of a professional wanting the record in her grip. Han Taekyung filled the doorway the way weather fills a valley. She had seen the photograph. The photograph had lied by omission. It hadn't told her about the height, the way he had to be conscious of the frame not to knock his head, or the shoulders that made the tall door look ordinary. White shirt, 3 buttons open, sleeves folded to the forearm, a black tailored vest, and on the left side of his neck, climbing up from under his collar to just below the ear, a lion inked in black with threads of gold, worked through the mane, so that when the light off the window caught it, the gold moved. He was looking at his son. Then he was looking at her. "You're touching his chart," he said. "I'm reading it." The last one read it too. Then she gave him the wrong dose. "I'm not the last one." Camille set the chart down flat on the rail, deliberately, both hands, nothing hidden. "I'm the one reading it in front of you." Something crossed his face and was gone before she could name it. He came into the room. He did not look at her again. He crossed to the bed and put one large hand on his son's hair, and the boy leaned into it, just slightly, a lean he probably didn't know he was doing. "How do you feel?" Taekyung said, in Korean first, then in English, as if correcting himself. "Fine, Appa, she counts without touching." "Does she?" He looked at the number on the chart, then at the small paper cup on the tray by the bed, the one holding the mid-morning dose the house manager had left ready. "He hasn't taken his medicine." "He's about to," Camille said. "I wanted his temperature first." "He takes it at 10. It's 10 past. He takes it after I confirm he's stable enough to take it. That's what the 10 is for. Not the clock. The check." She kept her voice level, the voice she used on frightened families and frightened residents alike, the one that didn't rise. "The number's good. He's ready now. Watch." She lifted the cup and Taekyung reached across and took it from her hand. "I'll do it." For a half-second the room held nothing but that, his hand around the cup, her empty fingers, the boy's eyes going fast between the two of them. "Mr. Han." She stood. She was not a short woman, but she had to lift her chin, and she did it without flinching. "You can absolutely give him the medicine. You're his father, but you're going to give him the wrong amount at the wrong moment, because you're doing it to prove a point to me, and he's watching us do it." The temperature dropped again. She saw the man who cleared rooms rise up behind his eyes. "Say that again." "He's watching us," she repeated, quieter, not louder, and she turned her body a few degrees so the boy was more behind her, not hidden, but shielded, a nurse's instinct older than fear. "You want to test whether I know what I'm doing. That's fair. You've had 4 people fail him. But you don't run the test over his bed. You don't teach a 7-year-old that his medicine is something 2 grown-ups fight about. Because the day you win that fight is the day he decides his medicine is a weapon." Taekyung's jaw worked. The cup stayed in his hand. Minjeon, very small, said, "Appa." Neither of them looked at him. That was the mistake, and Camille caught it in herself the same instant she caught it in him. They were both doing exactly the thing she'd just named. She lowered her voice to almost nothing. "Give it to him," she said. "Right now. The correct dose is the whole cup. It's already measured. The house manager measured it under Dr. Mercer's order, and I've checked it against the chart. It's right. Give it to your son, and then let's you and I have every argument you want. Down the hall, away from him, as loud as you like." A long moment. Then Taekyung crouched by the bed, folded that enormous frame down until he was level with the boy, and held the cup to Minjun's mouth, and the child drank, and it was over. The smallest ordinary thing, a father giving a boy his medicine, and something in Camille's shoulders came down half an inch. "Good," she said softly. "That's all it ever needed to be." Taekyung set the empty cup on the tray. He rose. He looked at her the way men like him looked at problems that hadn't yet chosen a category. "Hallway," he said. "Hallway," she agreed. She squeezed Minjun's foot through the blanket on her way past. A promise, "I'm coming back," and followed the wide back of the Golden Lion out of his son's room. The hallway was long and lined with photographs she didn't let herself look at. He walked to the far end where a window looked down on the planted wild trees, and he turned, and he was no longer moderating his size for the boy's sake. He used all of it now. He stood so that she had to stop or walk into him. "You've been in my house 1 hour," he said. "About that. And you've decided how I speak to my son." "No." She stood her ground, which meant standing closer to him than was comfortable, because stepping back was answering a question she wouldn't answer. "I've decided how medicine happens in a room where I'm the nurse. How you speak to your son is your business, and I will never touch it. But the medicine is mine. That's what you're paying for. If you wanted someone who'd hand you the cup and look at the floor, you've had 4 of those. They took their shoes off so the floor wouldn't creak on the way out." His eyes narrowed a fraction. She'd landed something. "You know about that." The whole house knows about that. A nurse who's scared of the family is no good to the patient. She spends her attention managing you instead of watching him. I don't have that attention to spare. I need all of it for the boy, which means I can't be afraid of you. So I'm not going to be. She let a breath out. That's not disrespect. That's the opposite. I'm treating you like a man who can handle the truth in his own house. For a long moment, he studied her. Up close, the lion on his neck was fine work, the gold not painted but somehow set into the black, and she made herself look at his eyes instead, because looking at the tattoo was looking away. 4 nurses, he said. The first 2 I dismissed. They lied about his numbers to keep me calm. The 3rd stole. The 4th took her shoes off. She was afraid I would blame her for something she didn't do. He said it flatly, and under the flatness she heard the exhaustion of a man who had watched people flee him his whole life and had stopped expecting anything else. Everyone in this house is afraid of the wrong thing. They're afraid of me. They should be afraid of him getting worse. Then we agree on something. We don't agree. His voice hardened. You corrected me in front of my son. You contradicted me in front of your patient. She didn't blink. You told him his nurse was touching his chart like I'd done something wrong. On my first hour, with him listening. That teaches him not to trust the person keeping him alive. So I corrected the correction. If you never do the first thing, I'll never do the second. That's the whole deal. It starts and ends at the edge of that room. She watched him weigh it. She had learned, in 7 years of walking into the homes of powerful men whose children were sick, that the powerful ones fell into 2 camps. The ones who wanted to be obeyed, and the ones who wanted, underneath everything, to be told the truth by someone who wasn't terrified. She was betting Han Taekyung was the second kind, and she had 1 hour of evidence and a lease and a 16-year-old to feed, and she was betting anyway. How old is your sister? He said. She hadn't told him she had a sister. The house manager then, or the file the security team had built on her before the gate ever opened 40 slow seconds. 16, she said. Sadie? And you support her. Since I was 20, our mother passed. Our father was already gone. She said it clean, no bid for sympathy in it. So when you ask yourself whether this nurse is going to sneak out in her socks, no, I'm not. I need this contract more than I need you to like me, and I don't need you to like me at all. I need you to let me do the work. Those aren't the same thing, and I won't pretend they are. Something shifted in his face. Not warmth. She wouldn't have believed warmth, but a recalculation, the look of a man moving a piece on a board he thought he'd already read. You're honest, he said, or you're the best liar I've had. I'm honest? It's cheaper. She almost smiled and didn't. He moved, then, 1 slow step toward the window, and she thought he was ending the conversation until she saw he was only turning so the light fell differently, so he could look at her without the glare. It was a small courtesy from a man who dealt mostly in the opposite, and she noted it the way she noted everything today, quietly, for later. My son took your thermometer, he said. He did. The last 4, he tested. He hid things. He refused things. He wanted to see who'd stay and who'd break. His voice went low. You. He handed it back. I asked for it. Then I waited. Kids give things to people who wait. She shrugged one shoulder. He's not a difficult child, Mr. Han. He's a careful one. Somebody taught him that careful keeps you safe in this house. I'd like to know who. That reached something. His hand, resting flat against the window frame, pressed harder into the wood, the knuckles paling for a breath before he let them ease. Ask Dr. Mercer to send me the full medication schedule, she went on, before the silence could set. Not the summary, doses, lots, times, the whole record. If I'm going to be responsible for it, I read all of it. Mercer sends the summary. That's how it's always been done. Then it's about to be done differently. She let that hang, gentle, factual. Not because I don't trust him, because the boys had 4 nurses and none of them saw the whole picture, and 4 people missing the same thing usually means the picture's the problem, not the people. He was quiet. Down the hall, faintly, the sound of cartoons had come back on. 1 week, Taekyung said. 1 week for what? To show me you're different. My uncle thinks I should have sent you back at the gate. The house thinks you won't last 3 days. Prove them wrong, and you stay. Prove them right. He didn't finish it, because he didn't need to. I don't need a week to prove I'm different, Camille said. I proved it in the last 10 minutes. But I'll take the week, because it means you'll be watching, and when you watch closely enough, you'll see what I see. That's all I want. I want you looking." He tilted his head, the smallest motion, the first thing he'd done that wasn't armored. Looking at what? I don't know yet. And that was true, and she heard the truth of it surprise her own mouth. But I've done a lot of these. 4 nurses don't run from a healing boy. Something in this house is off, and I can't name it in an hour. Give me the full schedule and the week, and I'll name it for you. That's the deal I'm offering. Better than the one you offered me. For the first time, Han Tae-kyung looked at her. Really looked, the way a man looks at a locked thing he's just realized might open, and Camille Harper held that look without dropping her eyes, one hand still resting on the strap of the navy bag that a 7-year-old had already gotten into once today, and behind them both, at the far end of the hall, a door she hadn't seen open clicked quietly shut. Neither of them heard it. "The full schedule," Tae-kyung said at last. "You'll have it tonight. Tonight." She nodded once, turned, and walked back toward the boy's room, and she did not let herself exhale until her hand was on his door, because a man like that could read a breath the way other men read a signed confession, and she had decided in a coffee shop parking lot 3 miles and 1 lifetime ago that today, in this house, she would give nothing away for free. Min Joan looked up when she came in. The cartoons flickered silent again. He'd muted them the second he heard her hand on the door. "Did he fire you?" "No." "Are you staying?" "For now." She sat back down in the chair beside the man-sized bed and pulled the chart into her lap, and the boy watched her the way he'd watched her lift the empty pocket, waiting to see what the adult would do next. 1 week, then we'll see. The others didn't get a week. "I know. Why'd you get one?" Camille looked at him, at the pale blue cardigan, and the bracelet slid too far up the thin wrist, and his father's eyes set in a face that hadn't yet decided whether the world was safe. And she thought about the paper cup, and the summary Mercer sent instead of the record, and the 4 women who had come and gone, and the door she hadn't heard close. "Because I asked good questions," she said. "You want to learn how to do that?" He considered it with the gravity of a much older person. "Yes," Minjun said. "Then first rule." She clicked her pen and wrote the time in the margin. 10:14, dose confirmed, patient stable, father present. You never take a person's word for the number. You check the number yourself, even when checking makes somebody in the room angry. She looked up at him. "Especially then." "Even Appa?" "Even me," she said. "Now hand me back my pen light. You lifted it while I was writing." The boy's mouth fell open. Then, slowly, from under the blanket, a small fist emerged, and in it was her pen light, and Camille Harper laughed for the first time since the gate had swallowed her car 40 seconds at a time. Laughed real, out loud, in a house where nobody laughed. And somewhere below them, in a study lined with photographs of a woman 2 years dead, Dr. Adrian Mercer set down his phone, opened a locked drawer, and began, very carefully, to change a number that no one in this house had ever thought to check. The laugh was still in the room when the tablet knocked twice against the doorframe. The house manager stood there with a folder pressed to her chest, and behind the glass of her expression, something had gone careful. "Dr. Mercer sent the afternoon dose up early," she said. "He asked me to remind you the timing is fixed." Camille kept her hand where it was, open, palm up, until Minjun set the pen light in it. Only then did she turn. Fixed by what? By the schedule. The schedule I asked for last night and didn't get. Camille slid the pen light into her breast pocket. "I'll come down." The house manager's eyes moved once to the boy and back. He'd prefer to bring it up himself. Then he can bring the whole record with it. Camille stood, unhurried, smoothing the front of her scrub. "Doses, lots, times, not the summary." The woman's mouth opened and shut. She wrote nothing on the tablet. She left, and her steps down the hall were the softest thing in the house, and Camille noticed that too, the way everyone here learned to walk so that the walls wouldn't hear them. Min Joan had gone quiet in the bed. He was watching her the way children watch adults decide something over their heads. "You're going to make Appa angry," he said. "I'm going to make somebody angry. I haven't decided who yet." She sat back down on the edge of the mattress, close but not touching, because touch was a thing he flinched from, and she had catalogued that on the first hour. Min-jun, when you take the afternoon medicine, how do you feel after? He shrugged. The small, careful shrug of a boy who has been asked 100 questions by 5 nurses and learned that answers get used against him. Tired, she said, for him. Or awake. Something shifted in his face. Tired, he admitted. After the yellow one. I sleep. Uma used to sit with me until I did. Camille wrote nothing down. She'd learned in part of her own life, the 20-year-old part, that a child stops talking the second a pen comes out. And before, when you take it, right before. Buzzy, he picked at the hem of the blanket. Like there's a bee, then the bee goes away and I'm tired. Buzzy before, tired after. She turned the 2 words over the way she'd turn a chart over, looking for the line that didn't match the others. A cardiac recovery kid on a stable protocol did not get buzzy and then drop. Not from anything she'd hang. She filed it and smiled at him like it was nothing. Adrian Mercer came up himself. He came the way a man comes when he has decided to be gracious about being summoned, and the graciousness was the first thing wrong with him. He carried a small tray with a single dosing cup and a folder that was too thin. Miss Harper. He set the tray on the rolling table and did not look at the boy. I understand you've been asking after paperwork. The full medication record. Yes. You'll find everything relevant here. He tapped the folder. I keep the granular data in my own files. It's a liability question, you understand. Chain of custody. Chain of custody is exactly why I want to see the lots. Camille didn't reach for the folder. She reached for the dosing cup instead and lifted it to the window light and looked at the color of what was in it. Pale, faintly gold. The yellow one. You measured this. As I measure all of them. From which bottle? A pause. Small. But she was a woman who counted the seconds a gate took to open, and she counted this one too. The current bottle, Mercer said. Show me the current bottle. Mercer's smile held. It held the way a wall holds a crack. You can't see it move, but you know it will. Miss Harper, I've run this child's care for 14 months, through 2 hospitalizations. With respect, a home nurse on her first day. Is the person whose license is on the line if she hangs a dose she didn't verify? She set the cup down without giving it back to him. I don't administer what I don't source. That's not new. That's the job. If you want me to give Min-jun this at 4 o'clock, I need to see the bottle it came from, read the lot off the label, and match it to your record. 10 minutes. Then it's done, and we never do this dance again. Behind Mercer, the boy had gone very still, and Camille watched the doctor register the audience, the small witness in the bed, and recalculate. She'd used the same lever on the father that morning. She was learning the house had one weakness it shared top to bottom. None of them wanted to lose in front of the boy. Come down to the office, Mercer said. The bottles are secured. Secured where a nurse can't reach them. She let that sit in the air a second, unaccusing, just true. All right, lead the way. Mercer's office was on the ground floor, off the study lined with the dead woman's photographs. Camille clocked the doorway to it as she passed, the frames just visible. A woman with a heart-shaped face laughing at a camera 2 years gone, and she filed the question of why the doctor's rooms opened onto the wife's shrine, and kept walking. She didn't slow. Slowing was a tell. The medication cabinet was steel, wall-mounted, keyed. Mercer turned the key with his body between her and the lock, which she also filed. Inside, the bottles stood in a neat row on the middle shelf, amber plastic, pharmacy labels facing out, and it was all so orderly that the orderliness itself put a hand on the back of her neck. The current bottle, Mercer took down one from the front, handed it to her label first, the way you hand someone a thing you've already decided they'll accept. Camille read the label. Read the name of the drug, the concentration, the pharmacy, the date. Then she read the lot number, and she read it a second time, moving her lips the way she'd taught the boy to an hour ago, because you never take a person's word for the number, you check the number yourself, especially when checking makes someone in the room angry. And your record. She held her free hand out. Palm up, the same gesture. She was aware she was doing it, and she did it anyway. Mercer gave her the thin folder. She opened it against the cabinet door and ran her finger down the dosing log to the current week, to the yellow medication, to the lot column. The numbers didn't match. Not by a lot, by a digit. The bottle in her hand ended in a 7. The record said 4, one character. The kind of thing a tired hand writes wrong at the end of a double shift. The kind of thing that means nothing. The kind of thing that means everything, and there was no way to know which until you knew more. She kept her face exactly where it was. This was the muscle she'd built at 20, standing across a hospital counter from a supervisor who wanted her to sign something she hadn't watched happen. You feel the floor tilt and you keep your face flat, and you buy time with a question that sounds like nothing. How many bottles are in the rotation right now? 1. This one. Mercer's answer came a half beat too fast. She turned the amber bottle so its shoulder caught the light and looked at the fill line. This is 3/4 full. It's dated 11 days ago. She looked up at him, mild. He takes it twice a day. You'd be lower than this. The doctor's hand moved toward the cabinet. An instinct, aborted. There may be a second in rotation. We alternate to avoid running out. Then let's see the second. They're identical. Then it costs you nothing to show me. She was already reaching past his shoulder. Not quite. Waiting for the permission she was going to take if he didn't give it. Dr. Mercer. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm reconciling a number. That's all reconciling is. You make two things agree, or you find out why they don't. Right now they don't. For a moment she thought he'd refuse outright. And she was ready for that too, because refusal was its own kind of answer. Then his shoulders came down a fraction and he reached into the back of the shelf, behind the neat front row, and took out a second amber bottle that had not been facing label out, that had been facing label in, that had been turned around. She read its lot. It ended in 4. 2 bottles, 2 lots. Same drug, same strength on the label, and one of them hidden behind the other with its number to the wall. There, Mercer said, and something in his voice was trying to be relief. The 4. The record's correct. You measured out of the 7 by mistake, that's all. I'll take that cup back. You measured it, Camille said quietly. Upstairs. You told me the current bottle. This one. She lifted the 7. The one in front. The office was very still. Somewhere in the house a clock she couldn't see ticked, and she thought of the dosing cup sitting on the rolling table upstairs next to a 7-year-old, pale gold, waiting for 4 o'clock, and the buzzy then tired the boy had described, and she felt the floor go from tilt to something steeper. I'll take both, she said. Mercer's chin came up. You'll take neither. This is my cabinet. It's his medication. She had 1 bottle in each hand now, and she did not put either down. And until the record and the label agree, neither one goes into that child. I'll hold the doses. I'll call the prescribing cardiologist and read her both lot numbers and let her tell me which is real. That's not me overstepping. That's the protocol you'd want, if it were your license. She let a beat pass. Or your son. The last word did something to the room. Mercer's eyes went, involuntarily, to the door, to the hallway, to the stairs, to the floor above where the boy was, and Camille understood that the doctor was afraid of the same thing she'd used on the father, but from the other side. He was afraid of being seen. You're new here, Mercer said, and now the graciousness was gone, and what was under it was flat and cold and much older. Let me give you the orientation nobody gave the other 4. In this house, you care for the boy. You don't audit the pharmacy. The last woman who confused those 2 things is not here. The 4th one. Camille didn't move. She left because she was afraid of being blamed. That's what his father told me this morning. Blamed for what, Dr. Mercer? She watched the question land. She watched him decide not to answer it. And in the not answering, she got more than an answer would have given her. Put the bottles back, he said. Come with me to call the cardiologist and I'll put them wherever you like afterward. Ms. Harper. Camille. She was already at the door, both bottles in one hand now, folder in the other, moving the way she'd learned to move out of rooms that were about to close. Not fast, fast reads as flight, but steady, taking the exit like it was hers. You can walk me to a phone, or I can find one myself, but those 2 numbers don't disagree quietly. Not on my shift. She was in the hall before he was out of his chair. She didn't run into the father. She walked into him. Taekyung was at the base of the stairs, one hand on the rail, and he had the stillness of a man who had been standing there long enough to have heard voices without words. His eyes went to her hands, the 2 amber bottles, the folder, and then past her to the office doorway where Mercer was just appearing, straightening his coat, arranging his face. What is this? Taekyung said. Not loud, to the hallway generally, which meant to both of them. Mercer got there first. A misunderstanding about protocol. Ms. Harper isn't clear yet on how the medication is handled. I asked her. The father's eyes hadn't left Camille. What is this? She had a choice, and she made it in the time it takes to breathe once. She did not say sabotage. She did not say your doctor. She did not have proof of anything, except a mismatched digit and a bottle turned to face a wall. And she'd learned young that the fastest way to lose a true thing is to overstate it before you can carry its weight. 2 bottles of the same drug, she said. 2 different lot numbers. The record lists one. The dose was measured from the other. She held them up. 7 in the left, 4 in the right, so he could see there were 2. It might be nothing. Pharmacies split lots. But I don't put a number I can't verify into your son, and right now I can't verify this one. So I'm holding the 4 o'clock dose until the prescribing cardiologist tells me which lot is the real protocol. That's the whole thing. For a moment, nobody spoke. The father looked at the 2 bottles the way a man looks at 2 cards he's been told are the same and can now see are not. Dr. Mercer keeps the record, Taekyung said slowly. To Mercer, now, you keep the record. I do, and the record is correct. Mercer's voice found its footing. She pulled the wrong bottle. It's a labeling matter, nothing more. If we let a first-day nurse start canceling doses on a cardiac child every time she's confused, we're back to the boy in a hospital bed. Is that what you want? Because that's what caution like this costs. It was a good move. Camille felt it land. The invocation of the hospital, the 2 hospitalizations, the fear that lived in this father under everything. She saw Taekyung's jaw work. She saw the pull of it. 14 months of trusting this man against 1 morning of trusting her. He's right that skipping a dose has a cost, Camille said, before the father could turn. So does giving the wrong one, and I'm not canceling the dose. I'm delaying it by 1 phone call. She looked at Taekyung, only at him. You gave me a week to tell you what's off in this house. I'm not going to wait a week. I found something on day 1. I might be wrong. Give me 1 phone call to the cardiologist and we'll all know. If I'm wrong, you can put me back at the gate yourself and your uncle gets to be right about me. She saw the last line register. The uncle, the gate, the thing he'd told her that morning. She was using his own words back, and he knew it, and the corner of his mouth did something that was not a smile. Whose number? Taekyung said. The prescribing cardiologist. It's on the bottle. She turned the 4 so the pharmacy label faced him. Her office is on here. You can dial it, you can hold the phone. I just want the answer in the room, not filtered through anybody. Filtered through? Mercer started. Through the summary, Camille said. The thing you send instead of the record. They did it in the study. Camille noted that the father chose the study, the room with the photographs, over Mercer's office. And she noted that Mercer did not want to be in it. The small resistance in his step at the threshold. The way his eyes stayed off the frames, the way you keep your eyes off a thing you can't afford to be caught looking at. Taekyung dialed. He put the phone on the desk between the 3 of them, on speaker, and it was the first thing he'd done all day that Camille approved of without reservation. The cardiologist's office answered. A nurse, then a hold, then a woman's voice, brisk and unhurried at once, the voice of someone who reads numbers for a living. Camille read her both lots. 7, 4. She read the drug, the strength, the date. She kept her voice flat, clinical, a nurse reconciling a chart, giving the woman on the phone no story to react to, only data. There was a pause on the line. Papers, a keyboard. The lot I dispensed against this prescription ends in 4, the cardiologist said. I have no record of a lot ending in 7 for this patient. Where did the 7 come from? Camille did not look at Mercer. She'd learned that too. You don't look at the person the answer indicts, you let the room look for you. It's in the home cabinet, she said, front of the shelf. Then I'd sequester it and not administer from it until we know what it is. Same drug on the label doesn't mean same drug in the bottle, and it doesn't mean same concentration. If the boy's been dosed off an unverified lot, I want a level drawn. Can you draw a level? I can arrange it. Do. Today if you can. A beat. And Ms. Harper. Camille Harper. Whoever caught this, good catch. That's exactly the number nobody checks. The line went quiet. Taekyung reached out and ended the call, and the silence after it was a different silence than the one before, because now there was a fact in the middle of the room, and everyone had heard it in the same voice at the same time, unfiltered, unsummarized. The 4 was real. The 7 was not on any record, and the 7 was the one in front, the one Mercer had measured from, the one that had been sitting in a dosing cup beside a 7-year-old 10 minutes ago. Camille set both bottles on the desk. She put the 7 a little apart from the 4, the beginning of a separation she already knew she'd have to make formal. Then she looked up, and she looked at Mercer, and she let the room look with her. Mercer's face had gone to work. "There's an obvious explanation," he said. "A pharmacy error. They sent a bottle labeled wrong, or a substitute lot, and it got shelved. It happens weekly across this city. I'll call them in the morning and—" "You'll call them now," Taekyung said. "Their line closes at— then you'll leave a message now, on speaker, in this room." The father's voice hadn't risen. It had done the opposite. It had gone down to the register that men like him used when they'd stopped negotiating. "And tomorrow I will have someone I trust call the same pharmacy and ask the same question, and the 2 answers will agree, or you will explain to me why they don't." Mercer's jaw tightened. "You're taking the word of a woman you met this morning over 14 months. I'm taking the word of a woman you met this morning over 14 months. I'm taking the word of the cardiologist." Taekyung stood. He used the height, and for once, Camille was glad to watch him use it on someone else. "You heard it. I heard it." She heard it. A nod, barely, at Camille. "The record says 4. The bottle in front says 7. My son drinks what's in front." He let that sentence finish itself in the air. "Explain that to me and I'll apologize to you. Fail to and you'll wish you had." They drew the level that evening. Camille arranged it the way she arranged everything now. Herself, directly. No summary. No middleman. She called a mobile phlebotomy service off her own phone, in front of the father, and read them the address and did not let Mercer make the call for her. The blood went out in a labeled tube she watched get sealed. She photographed the seal. She photographed both bottles, front and label and lot, and she wrote the time on a paper she folded into her own pocket. Not the folder, because the folder was Mercer's, and she trusted the folder about as far as she trusted the man who thinned it. Minjeon watched all of it from the bed. When the phlebotomist was gone, he said, "You didn't give me the yellow one." "Not today. Not until I know which yellow one." She set the folded paper deeper into her pocket and sat on the edge of the mattress. "Are you buzzy right now?" He thought about it, seriously, the way he did everything. "No." "Tired?" "No." A pause. "Is that bad? That I'm not tired?" "No, baby." The word slipped out and she didn't take it back. "That's not bad." He picked at the blanket hem again. "The other nurses gave me the yellow one, and then I got tired, and then Uma wasn't there anymore. The child logic of it, the way grief attaches to whatever's nearby, the medicine, the sleep, the absence. Dr. Mercer said the tired means it's working." Camille kept very still. "Did he?" "He says a lot of things." Minjeon looked up at her, and for a second he was not 7. He was something older and more tired than 7. A boy who had learned to check numbers because nobody around him would. "Nobody checks him. You checked him." "I checked the number." She reached out, slow, telegraphed, giving him every second to pull back. And when he didn't, she put her hand over his small one on the blanket. He let her. "First time. That's all I did. I'll keep doing it." Downstairs, Camille knew without seeing it, a locked drawer was being opened again, and a man who had spent 14 months betting that no one in this house would ever read a lot number to the woman who wrote the prescription was learning that the 5th nurse could count. She didn't know yet what the 7 was. She didn't know who it served or how far up the house it went, or that the woman in the photographs downstairs had, before she died, started asking the same kind of question in the same kind of quiet. She only knew that 2 numbers had refused to agree, and that she'd made them disagree out loud, in a room, in front of the one man who could act on it. The boy's hand turned over under hers and held on, and for a while neither of them said anything, and the not saying was its own kind of agreement. She thought about the 4th nurse then, the one who'd left afraid of being blamed. She thought about how easy it would have been to be the 5th one to walk out through the gate at 40 seconds a count, Contract unsigned, Sadie's lease still due, the whole thing filed under not my fight. She thought about the woman on the phone saying good catch in the voice of someone who'd been waiting 14 months for anyone to catch it. Permanence, Camille was learning, was not the same thing as being right. Staying was easy. Staying and refusing to look away was the part nobody in this house had managed yet. You said something's off in the house, Minjun whispered, like it was a secret they shared now, because it was. Did you find it? Camille looked at the 7 and the 4 sitting apart on the rolling table, 2 amber bottles, one lie between them she hadn't finished pulling into the light. I found the edge of it, she said. Not the whole thing. Not yet. She squeezed his hand once and let go before he had to ask her to. Tomorrow we find more, and tomorrow you check the label with me, both of us, out loud. He nodded, solemn, a small conspirator in a cardigan, and somewhere below them, the drawer clicked shut on a man who had just stopped being the only person in the house who knew where the bodies of the numbers were buried. The phlebotomy result came in at 6:52 the next morning, and Camille read it standing in the kitchen with her shoes already on. She had slept 4 hours in a guest room down the hall from the boy, door open, listening. The house made no sound she could trust. So when her phone lit with the lab portal, she was awake before it finished buzzing. She thumbed it open. She read the number once. She read it a second time, slower, the way she had taught the boy to do. The level was clean, not low. Not the flat drug trough she had braced for. The drug in Minjun's blood sat exactly where a child on the prescribed dose should sit. Steady, therapeutic, correct. She set the phone face down on the counter and pressed her palm flat over it. Correct dose, wrong lot. That was the sentence the cardiologist had handed her the night before, and here it was in numbers she could show a licensing board. The medicine reaching the boy was the medicine he needed, but it was coming out of a bottle whose lot number appeared on no record anyone could produce. Somebody had built a second supply. Somebody had gone to the trouble of matching the dose so the child would look fine, feel fine, test fine, while the paper trail underneath him rotted. You did not do that by accident. You did not do that to a boy you were healing. She picked the phone back up. She did not let herself finish the thought. Footsteps on the stairs. Han Tae-kyung came down in yesterday's shirt, sleeves still folded, no jacket, and for a man who owned the house he moved through it like he was checking it for intruders. He stopped when he saw her. "You're here," he said. "I said I would be." The others said that too. "I know." She turned the phone so the screen faced him. "The level's back." He crossed the kitchen. He did not reach for the phone. He read it from where she held it, eyes moving, and she watched him find the number she had found. "Tell me what I'm looking at." "His blood is right." She kept her voice flat, clinical, the tone she used when a parent was one bad word from panic. "The amount of medicine in him is exactly what it should be. He's not being underdosed, he's not being overdosed." Something in his shoulders came down half an inch. Relief moved across the sculpted face, and he let it, for a second, because it was his son. "So, it was a mistake with the labels," he said. Mercer said, "No." The half-inch went back up. "If it were a mix-up," she said, "the number in his blood would wobble. 2 bottles, 2 batches, you'd see it swing." "It doesn't swing. It's flat, steady." She let that sit. Somebody measured it. Somebody made the wrong bottle behave like the right one. He was quiet. In the window behind him, the grounds were still gray. A gardener crossed the far lawn, and neither of them looked at him. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that someone matched the dose on purpose." "I'm telling you what the number says. I'm not telling you who. But you think. I think I'm not going to say a name out loud until I can hand you the paper that proves it." She slid the phone into the chest pocket of her scrub, not the tote, the pocket she could feel against her ribs. That's how this stops being a rumor and starts being something you can act on. "You want to help me? Don't touch anything in that clinic room. Not the cabinet, not the folder, not Mercer." His jaw worked. "He's been in my house 14 months. Then he's had 14 months to get good at it." That landed somewhere it hurt. She saw it land. She did not push on it. A man who felt cornered swung, and she needed him pointed the same direction she was, not at her. "I need 3 things," she said, before the silence could curdle. The full dispensing record, granular, every dose since the boy came home, the pharmacy that filled it, on the phone, with me on the line. And I need to log what I found last night in writing, formally, less dated, signed, and I need a copy of that log leaving this house today. Leaving, his eyes sharpened. Why does it leave? Because a record that only lives in this house can be edited by anyone who lives in this house. He understood her, she watched him understand her, and she watched him hate it. The clinic room smelled of alcohol and something floral under it, the ghost of an air freshener Mercer used to make the space feel less like what it was. He was already there when they came down, jacket on now, glasses on, the picture of a man with nothing to hide, standing in a room that had a great deal to hide. "Good morning," Mercer said. "I understand the level came back." "It did," Camille said. "Then you've seen that the boy is perfectly stable, which is what I've been telling you." He spread his hands, warm, reasonable. "I'm relieved. Genuinely. I know last night was tense. Sometimes a new caregiver. Show me the dispensing record." He paused, hands still open. "The summary is..." "Not the summary. Every dose, every date, the lot on each one." She set her tote on his exam table, unzipped it, took out a legal pad that was hers, blank, brought from her own home. "I'm going to write as you read, and Mr. Han is going to watch me write." Mercer's eyes flicked to Tae-kyung. Whatever he saw there made him reach, unhurried, for a folder. He read. She wrote. Dates, doses, the pale gold liquid measured in milliliters, and the lot numbers, and she wrote each lot in full, no shorthand, and every few lines she read her own writing back aloud so the room heard it. Tae-kyung stood by the door with his arms crossed and his weight even on both feet, and he did not say a word. And his silence did more to Mercer than any threat could have. The doctor's voice stayed smooth, but twice he lost his place in his own record, and twice he covered it with a small cough, and Camille wrote the time of each cough in the margin where he could not see. The lot ending in 4 ran down the page in a clean column. Then, 11 days back, it stopped, and the lot ending in 7 began. "There," she said, 11 days ago. "A refill," Mercer said. "Pharmacies rotate stock. It's routine." "The pharmacy that filled the 4, is it the same pharmacy that filled the 7? A beat. I'd have to check. Check now. I don't have the... You have a phone. So do I. And I have the number off the label of the 4. She was already reading it off the bottle in her gloved hand. The real bottle, the one the cardiologist had confirmed. "Put yours on the table. We'll use mine. Speaker." Mercer did not put his phone on the table. "Dr. Mercer." Tae-kyung spoke for the first time, and he did not raise his voice, and that was worse. "My son drinks what is in front of him. You told me that room was clean." He nodded at the counter. "Make the call, or I will have someone make it for you who is less polite than she is." Mercer set his phone on the table. They used hers. The pharmacist was a woman with a Tuesday morning voice, unhurried, competent, a little bored, until the questions started landing. Camille read the lot ending in 4. The pharmacist confirmed it. Filled here, this date, this prescriber, this patient, this dose. Camille read the lot ending in 7. Keys clicking. A pause that stretched. "We never dispensed that lot," the pharmacist said. "Not to this patient. Not to any patient. That's not a lot number we've had in the building." The room did not move. "Can you say that again?" Camille said, for the people in the room, slowly. "Lot ending 7. We have no record of ordering it, receiving it, or dispensing it. Where did you get a bottle with that lot?" Camille looked at Mercer. So did Tae-kyung. Mercer's face did a careful, controlled thing, the face of a man deciding which lie was still standing. "There was a supply issue in the spring," he said. "I sourced a bridge supply through a compounding contact when the pharmacy was backordered. It's irregular, but it's not." "There was no backorder," the pharmacist said, still on speaker, still bored, and the boredom was the cruelest part. "This prescription's been filled on time every month. I'm looking at it." Camille reached over and gently ended the call. She wrote the pharmacist's name and the time on the pad. Then she capped her pen. "A bridge supply," she said, "that the pharmacy says never happened. From a compounding contact you can't name. In a bottle turned label first behind the row, so nobody reads it. Dosed to match the real one so the boy looks fine on paper. She looked up. That's a lot of care, Dr. Mercer, for something you're calling a mistake. You're a home nurse, Mercer said, and the warmth was gone now, and what was under it was thin and cold. You've been in this house one day. Long enough to read a number. You don't know what you've walked into. Then tell me. He didn't. She logged it upstairs, at the boy's rolling table, because she wanted the boy to see her do it. Not the details, she kept the details vague and the fear entirely out of her face, but she wanted him to watch a grown person write down exactly what happened, sign it, date it, and refuse to be talked out of it. Min-Joon watched her fill the page. Is that about the 2 bottles, he said. Yes. The one in front and the one in back. Yes. I told you, nobody checks him. There was no triumph in it. He was 7, and he said it the way a child says a thing he has known for too long and been believed about too little. I told the 3rd one, she said I was being dramatic. Camille's pen paused over the page. Who's the 3rd one? The nurse. The 3rd nurse. Before the one who took her shoes off. He picked at the edge of his cardigan sleeve. I told her the bottle in front made me buzzy. She said medicine doesn't lie, only kids do. Camille wrote that down too. Not because it was proof, because it was a child who had been telling the truth into a house that kept sending the truth away in a modest car, and somebody, finally, was going to keep the page. You weren't being dramatic, she said. You were being careful. There's a difference, and I need you to learn it now so nobody talks you out of it when you're 40. She signed the log. She dated it. She turned it so he could see. This says what happened. My name's on it. If anyone tries to change it, there's a copy that already left. Where'd it go? To my own email, and my sister's, and a folder that isn't in this house. She tore off a clean sheet, wrote 3 lines on it in block letters he could read, and folded it into his hand. That's what a real record looks like. You keep this one. Nobody takes it. He closed his fist around it. He had taken her thermometer and her pen light out of mischief. This he took like it was worth more than either. She separated the bottles for the 2nd time, and this time it was official. The lot ending in 7 went into a specimen bag she sealed and labeled and signed across the seal, so the signature would tear if the seal did. She photographed it in the boy's room, on the white table, with the date app stamped in the corner. She logged the chain, who touched it, when, where it went. Then she carried it downstairs herself, past Mercer's open clinic door, and set it not in his cabinet but on the kitchen island in front of Taekyung. This doesn't go back in that room, she said. It goes somewhere neither of you can reach it. A lawyer, a safe, the cardiologist's office, your call. But it leaves your doctor's hands today, and it does not come back. Taekyung looked at the sealed bag on his own kitchen island, the way a man looks at a thing that has been quietly poisoning his house for 11 days, maybe longer. 14 months, he said again, mostly to himself. You keep saying that number like it makes it less true. It makes it worse. She pulled off her gloves, one, then the other, and dropped them in the bin. He didn't slip once. He built a 2nd bottle and turned it to the wall. That's not a man who made a mistake. That's a man who made a system. Why? It came out low. The boy is my heir, my son. What does anyone gain from? I don't know yet. She held his eyes. And I'm not going to guess in your kitchen, but I'll tell you what I do know. You gave me a week to name what was off in this house. It's day 2. She let the number land. I'm naming it early, she said. There's a bottle in your house that isn't supposed to exist, dosed by someone who wanted your son to look healthy, while the record underneath him fell apart. I don't know why. I know it's real, and now it's on paper, and the paper's outside these walls. He was very still. Big men had a way of getting quiet that filled a room more than shouting, and she had learned, in one day, that his quiet was thinking, not deciding. She waited it out. You could have taken the level and left, he said finally. It was clean. My son is stable. You could have decided your week was easy money and said nothing. I don't work like that. I'm learning how you work. He looked at her, and it was the first time he had looked at her without measuring her against 4 women who had failed. The first 4 told me what I wanted to hear. 2 lied about the numbers, 1 stole, 1 ran. You, He stopped. I checked the number, she said, even though it irritated you, especially because it irritated you. Something almost moved at the corner of his mouth. It didn't get to be a smile, but it wanted to. Mercer came to find her at midday. She was in the boy's room with the door open, and Mercer stopped in the frame, and he had the good sense not to come in. You've made this a very large problem, he said quietly, out of a supply irregularity. You made it large when you turned the bottle to the wall. You have a sister. He said it the way Taekyung had said it the day before, except in his mouth, it was not information. It was a hand on a doorknob. 16. A lease. You're the only income. It's a precarious little life you've built, Miss Harper, and you've built it around never making a powerful person angry. And now you're standing in the most powerful house in this county, making a great deal of noise. Camille set down the boy's chart. She stood. She was not as tall as the men in this house, but she had spent her whole working life being the smallest person in rooms that thought that meant she'd fold, and she had learned to make the space in front of her very hard to walk through. Get out of the doorway of my patient's room. I'm giving you advice. You're threatening my sister in front of a 7-year-old. She kept her voice level, for the boy, and she stepped between Mercer and the bed, so the child had her back to look at instead of the doctor's face. Say it again where there's a camera. Say it again to Mr. Han. You keep telling me I don't know what I walked into, so educate me. Or get out of the doorway. Mercer looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked past her, at the boy, and the boy looked back at him, and whatever passed between the doctor and the child was old, and Camille did not have the whole of it yet, but she saw the boy's hand close, under the blanket, around a folded piece of paper. Mercer left the doorway. Camille shut the door. She did not lock it, because a locked door in this house meant something, and she wanted no meaning attached to this. She sat back down. Her hands were steady. She had learned to make them steady. What she had not learned, in 27 years, was how to make the thing behind the steadiness stop, and it did not stop. It sat under her ribs beside the phone, and the clean number, and the sealed bag downstairs, and its name was not fear exactly. It was the certainty that she had just put her sister's roof in a rich man's hands and could not take it back. He's scared of you, Minjun said. He's not scared of me. He's scared of the paper. Same thing. The boy pulled the folded note out from under the blanket, looked at it, put it back. You're the paper. She laughed. It surprised her, coming up out of the tight place. That might be the smartest thing anybody said to me in this house. She called her sister from the far corner of the room, voice low, while the boy pretended to watch his muted cartoon and did not pretend very well. You're on speaker? Sadie asked. 16, and she already checked things too. Camille had taught her without meaning to. No, just tired. She turned toward the window. Listen to me. If a man calls the apartment, older, polite, calls himself a doctor, you don't talk to him. You hang up. You lock the door. You call me. Understood? A pause on the line. Camille, what did you do? I did my job. You always say that right before something gets hard. I know. She pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of her nose. It's going to be fine. I moved things somewhere safe today. Papers. The kind that protect us. She did not say the man had named Sadie by her age and her lease. She did not say she had felt her own pulse in her throat when he did. Do your homework. Lock the door. I'll be home in the morning. You said that yesterday. And I came home, didn't I? The line was quiet. Then, smaller. Yeah, you did. She hung up before her voice could do anything she'd have to explain. When she turned back, the boy was watching her over the top of the blanket. That's your sister, he said. That's my sister. You take care of her by yourself. Since I was your age plus 13. She sat back down. Somebody has to keep the paper for her too. He thought about that with the whole seriousness of 7. Then, we're the same, he said. We both got someone who checks for us now. She did not have an answer that fit in her throat, so she just reached over and squeezed his foot through the blanket, and he let her. And that was answer enough for both of them. That night, Taekyung found her in the kitchen again, and this time there was a folder on the island that was not Mercer's. I moved the bottle, he said. It's with a lawyer who does not work for my uncle. There are 2 copies of your log. One I have not read, so no one can say I edited it. The other went where you sent yours. He set his hand flat on the folder. I also pulled 14 months of Mercer's invoices. I have not opened them. I wanted you to open them, so that when we find something, it's your hands that found it, not mine. Camille looked at the folder. She looked at him. You understand what you're doing. I'm building a record that survives me being angry. That's exactly what you're doing. She pulled out a stool. She did not open the folder yet. Why give it to me? Because in one day, you did the one thing 4 professionals and I did not. He sat across from her, and the kitchen light caught the black and gold of the lion at his neck, and neither of them remarked on it. It was just part of the man now. You treated my son like his numbers mattered more than my mood. Do you know how many people in my life do that? None, she said. None. He turned the folder a half-inch toward her. My wife did. She checked things. She asked questions people wished she wouldn't. Something crossed his face and left. Then she died, and I stopped letting anyone check anything, because checking felt like doubt, and I could not afford to doubt the people keeping my son alive. His hand pressed the folder flat. That was the mistake, wasn't it? Staying somewhere isn't the same as respecting it, Camille said. The words came out quiet, and she felt them settle into the room like they had been waiting 2 years for someone to say. 14 months of a man in your house doesn't make him safe. It just makes him used to not being checked. Permanence doesn't replace respect. It never did. He said nothing, but he moved the folder the rest of the way across the island until it sat in front of her, and that was an answer. She opened it. The top page was a payment schedule. Retainer, monthly, a figure that made her pause. Not because it was large for a family like this, but because it was larger than a private physician's retainer had any reason to be. She ran her finger down the column and did not say anything yet. Under it, expense lines, supplies, lab fees, a recurring charge to a name she did not know, quarterly, rounded, the kind of number that gets invented rather than earned. This one, she said, and turned the page so he could see. Every 3 months, same amount. No detail. What is it? He read it, his jaw set. I approved that. I approve everything he sends. I never asked. His hand flattened on the counter. I signed my son's care over to a man, and I never asked him a single question that would have made him uncomfortable. You're asking now. Late. Late's still a real time, she said. Better than never. Worse than early. You know that. It's the same thing I tell parents who wait too long to call me. You can't buy back the days. You can only stop losing more of them starting now. She closed the folder, deliberately, and put her hand flat on top of his so neither of them could open it again tonight. Not tonight. We do this rested, sober, and slow, or we make a mistake that lets him say we were sloppy. Tomorrow. In daylight. With the lawyer on the phone, he looked at her hand on his. He did not move it. Neither did she, for 1 second longer than a professional would, and then she took it back. Not to solve it tonight. She knew better than to think one folder undid one doctor. But she opened it, and he watched her open it, and somewhere in the house a boy slept without the pale gold dose for the first time in 11 days, and did not go buzzy, and did not go under, and the two of them, the nurse from the modest car and the man they called the Golden Lion, bent over the same page, under the same light, on the same side of a thing, for the first time. Read it out loud, he said. The numbers. She almost smiled. Only if you check them behind me, she said. Don't take my word for it. Not even mine. He pulled his stool closer, and he did. Sadie held the dress up to the light and asked if it was a funeral. It's a dinner, Camille said. She took the dress back, a plain charcoal thing she'd owned for 3 years, and hung it on the closet door. The kind where people smile at each other and mean the opposite. So a funeral, Sadie said. Camille almost laughed. She hadn't slept. The invoices were still in her head, the quarterly charge rounded to a name that meant nothing, and the lawyer's voice on the phone that morning saying he'd have something by the weekend. The weekend was 4 days off. 4 days was a long time to leave a man like Mercer inside a house. Taekyung had called at 7, not to ask, to tell her. There was a dinner tonight, at the house, the kind that had been on the calendar for weeks. His uncle had arranged it. A woman named Baek Soo-jin would be there, and her family, and the words on everyone's lips would be alliance, and one word underneath it, that nobody would say out loud, marriage. You want me there, Camille had said. I want you where I can see you, he'd answered. And where the boy can see you. A pause. He won't eat if you're not in the house. So she'd said yes, and now she was standing in her own bedroom with her sister judging a charcoal dress, and the clock was moving toward 6. She kissed Sadie's forehead. Lock the door. Anyone calls saying they're a doctor. I hang up, Sadie said. I know. You told me 9 times. 10 now. The gate took 40 seconds, same as the first day. Camille counted them out of habit. This time she wasn't afraid of the cameras. She was thinking about the second lawyer, the one Tae-kyung had chosen on purpose because he didn't work for the uncle, and whether 4 days was fast enough. Inside, the house had changed clothes. Someone had laid a table for 12 in a room she'd never entered, long and pale, candles already lit though the sun hadn't dropped. Staff moved along the walls carrying things. The house manager passed her without the tablet for once, just a clipboard, and gave her a look that said, Behave. Camille went up to the boy first. Min-jun was dressed. Light blue cardigan, white shirt buttoned to the collar, hair combed flat by someone who wasn't him. He sat on the edge of the adult bed with his feet not reaching the floor, and in his lap was a small box. You look like a lawyer, she said. You look like a nurse, he said. At a party. She checked him anyway, because that was the job, and because it steadied her hands. Temperature normal, pulse counted without touching, the way he liked. No yellow dose today, 3 days running now, and his color was better than it had been the day she'd walked in. She wrote the numbers on the sheet he kept in his fist and gave back to her every morning like a transaction. Downstairs is loud, he said. Downstairs is grown-ups pretending. Pretending what? That they like each other. She capped her pen. You don't have to go down. I'll bring you a plate. He looked at the box in his lap, turned it once. It was old, she saw now. Velvet worn shiny at the corners. A hinge gone loose. Not a toy box. Not a boy's thing at all. Appa said I could give it to someone, Min-jun said. Give what? He opened the lid. Inside, on a bed of cream silk gone yellow with age, was a ring. Gold, thin, a small stone set flat, so it wouldn't catch on anything. A woman's ring, not new. Camille knew whose it was before he said it, the way you know a thing you don't want to know. It was Hermione's, Min-jun said. My grandmother. Then it was Uma's. He didn't look up. Appa keeps it. He said someday I would know who to give it to. Min-jun. I know who, he said. He held the box out to her with both hands, the way she'd taught him to hold anything that mattered. And he said the thing then, the sentence she would hear behind her eyes for a long time after, in a voice too flat and too sure for 7 years old. Permanence doesn't replace respect, he said. You stayed and you were respectful too, so it's yours. The candles downstairs threw no light this high. The room held very still. She did not take it. She wanted to. That was the part that frightened her. How much of her wanted to close her hand over that small, warm box and keep it. Instead, she knelt down so her eyes were under his, the way she'd learned worked with him, and she put her hands around his hands and pushed them gently back toward his chest. That's not mine to keep, she said. I'm giving it. I know you are, and it's the kindest thing anyone's given me in a long time. Her thumb moved over his knuckle. But this belonged to your grandmother, and then to your mother. It's not a thing you give a nurse, baby. It's a thing that stays in your family. You're not a thing, he said, stubborn, and she felt her throat close. No, but I'm not family either. Not this kind. She closed the lid over the ring with one finger, softly, so he'd feel it was a decision and not a rejection. Where did you get it? Does your appa know you have it out? The boy's eyes went sideways, the way they did when he'd taken something. She knew that look. She'd first seen it over a stolen thermometer. It lives in his room, Min-jun said. In the drawer that locks, but the key is in the lion. The lion, the gold lion, on the shelf. Its mouth opens. He said it like it was obvious, like everyone kept keys in the mouths of gold lions. I watch where things go. You told me to. Check the numbers yourself. Watch where things go. She'd taught him that. She'd made him a boy who watched, and here was the harvest of it. a family heirloom smuggled out of a locked drawer by a child who wanted to give her something and had no other currency. "Okay," she said. "Okay, we're going to put it back, together, before anyone counts it missing." He slid off the bed. He didn't argue. That was the thing about him. Once you gave him a reason that respected him, he moved. The hall was empty, staff all down at the table. His father's room was at the far end, past the wall of photographs she'd walked the first day. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the room was severe and clean, a bed made tight enough to bounce a coin, and on a low shelf a lion cast in gold-colored metal, mouth slightly open. Minjun reached up on his toes and tipped a small key out of it into his palm, like he'd done it before. The drawer was in the nightstand. It took the key with a soft mechanical give. Camille slid it open. The box's place was obvious, an oval depression in the drawer's felt liner where the velvet had sat undisturbed for 2 years. She set the box down into it and pressed. It didn't sit right. It rocked, one corner up, like something underneath was keeping it from lying flat. She lifted it back out. "It's not fitting," Minjun said. "No." She ran 2 fingers along the bottom of the drawer. The felt gave under her fingertip at the back edge. Not glued, just laid in. She caught it with a nail and lifted. Under the felt was a second bottom, a false one, a thin panel of wood or board, cut to fit, with a finger notch worn into one side by someone who'd opened it more than once. Camille looked at the boy. "Go stand by the door," she said. "Tell me if you hear the stairs." He went. She lifted the panel. Underneath, in the shallow hollow, were 3 things. A memory card, the small kind, in a clear sleeve. A folded stack of papers, thin, the kind that come off a printer, and an envelope, cream, soft at the edges from handling, with 2 letters written on the front in a hand that slanted hard to the right. She didn't touch them at first. She looked. She'd learned that from the vials. Look before you touch. Remember where everything sits, because someone will ask you later to prove you didn't move it. The papers on top were statements, bank statements. She scanned without lifting them and saw columns of numbers, and down the right edge a repeated figure, the same amount, over and over, on a schedule. Quarterly, rounded. She knew that shape. She'd seen it 8 hours ago in Mercer's invoices at the kitchen island, a charge to a name that meant nothing. It meant something now. The transfers didn't go. 2. The mystery name, they came. From somewhere and landed here, in an account she didn't recognize, on the same quarters Mercer billed the house. Money coming in every time money went out. A pipe with 2 ends. "Camille!" Minjun whispered from the door. "Nothing yet." "Good. Stay." The envelope last. She turned it with 1 finger so she could read the front without lifting it, and the 2 letters resolved into initials, pressed hard enough to dent the paper. A.M. Adrian Mercer. The flap wasn't sealed. It had been opened and reclosed so many times the gum had given up. She eased it with the edge of her nail and drew the letter halfway out, enough to read the top, not enough to say later that she'd taken it. The handwriting matched the initials on the front, the same hard right slant, but this wasn't a note. 2. Mercer. It was. About him, it started without a greeting, the way you write when you're afraid and you're writing fast. If you're reading this, it's because I stopped being able to. The first line said, Camille's hand went cold. AM changed the numbers again. I checked them myself this time. I didn't take his word, and the level doesn't match the dose he wrote. He knows I know. He was kind about it, which is how I knew to be afraid. She read it twice, then a third time, because her eyes kept sliding off the words the way they do when the mind refuses the door it's standing in front of. The rest of the page was short, a few lines only, cramped near the bottom, as if the writer had run low on nerve or time. I moved his level to the lab myself. I paid for it myself. I didn't tell T, because he stopped letting anyone check anything after his father, and if I'm wrong, I'll have called his own doctor a liar over nothing. But I'm not wrong. The number is flat when it should move. Someone is making the wrong bottle behave like the right one. Camille's own words, nearly. 3 days old in her mouth and 2 years old on this page, in a hand she'd never heard speak. Flat when it should move. She had stood at a kitchen island the night before and said almost exactly that to a man who'd called it a possible label mix-up. His wife had said it first, to no one, on paper, and folded it under a false bottom and died. There was a last line, smaller than the rest, the pen bearing down. If Min Jun is ever with someone who checks, really checks, not just stays, this is for them, not for T. He'll try to forgive it. This is for the one who won't. I checked the numbers myself. I didn't take his word. 2 years ago, a different patient, the same man, the same trick. Dose written one way, drug behaving another, a level that didn't line up, and a woman who had caught it, exactly the way Camille had caught it 3 days ago, and who had been kind about it, which was how she'd known to be afraid. Yoon So-yeon had found this. Before she died, she had found this, and she had written it down, and she had hidden it under the false bottom of her husband's drawer, where the only person who ever looked was a 7-year-old who watched where things went. Camille, the boy's voice, sharper, the stairs, someone. She heard it then too, a foot on the bottom step, then a second, unhurried, coming up. She had seconds. She knew the arithmetic of seconds. She'd been counting them at that gate for a week. She pushed the letter back into its envelope, laid the envelope down exactly where it had sat, the initials facing the same way, the statements on top, the memory card in its sleeve, back in its corner. She lowered the false panel, smoothed the felt back over it with the flat of her hand, pressing the edge down where her nail had lifted it, set the velvet box into its worn oval, flat now, because nothing was crowding it, because she'd fixed the thing the boy's theft had disturbed, pushed the drawer shut, held her hand out. Minjun dropped the key into it. She reached up and tipped it back into the lion's mouth, turned the animal a quarter so its face sat the way it had when she came in, and stepped back from the shelf just as the footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Taekyung filled the doorway. He'd changed for the dinner. She registered it without cataloging it. A darker vest, the collar opened the usual 3. His eyes went from her, to his son, to the shelf, to the nightstand, and back to her. He read rooms the way she read charts. He wanted to show me the lion, Camille said. Her voice came out level. She was surprised by it. I told him we don't touch other people's rooms. The boy, God bless him, said nothing. He'd learned that too. Taekyung looked at her a beat longer than was comfortable. Then he crouched to his son's height. Is that true? I showed her the lion, Minjun said. Not a lie. The best kind of true. His father straightened. The Beck family is downstairs, he said to Camille. My uncle is asking where I am, which means he's asking where you are, because he's decided you're the reason I'm difficult lately. A thin thing that wasn't a smile. Come down, both of you, Minjun. You'll say hello and then you'll be tired. I'll be tired, the boy agreed, rehearsing it. Camille walked out ahead of them. Her heart was going hard enough that she pressed the resume of it down, with the same discipline she used on everything. Not yet, not here, not with the uncle at the table and a card in a drawer she couldn't take without being seen taking it. At the top of the stairs, Taekyung caught her elbow. Not rough, just enough to stop her. You're pale, he said quietly, so the boy behind them wouldn't hear. I'm hungry, she said. You're a bad liar for someone so good at catching them. His eyes moved over her face, reading. What did you find in my son's hands? For half a second, she almost told him. The whole of it, the ring, the false bottom, his dead wife's handwriting saying. AM changed the numbers again. The words were right there behind her teeth. But the uncle was at the bottom of those stairs, Sung-wook, who'd wanted her gone at the gate, and she did not yet know how far the pipe with 2 ends ran, or whose hand was on the other end of it, and the one thing So-yeon's letter had taught her in 90 seconds was that being kind about what you knew was how you got to keep breathing. He gave me something that wasn't his to give, she said. True again. I gave it back. Taekyung held her eyes. Then he let go of her elbow. Downstairs, he said. Smile at my uncle. Don't mean it. The room with the long table had filled. 12 places, most of them taken now. She saw the uncle at once. Gray suit, gold tie, glasses thin as wire. the ease of a man who owned the chairs everyone else was borrowing. Han Sung-wook rose halfway when his nephew entered, an old-world courtesy that managed to look like a man measuring a horse. And to his left, a woman Camille hadn't met stood as well. Slender, pale suit the color of ice, dark hair straight down her back, joints of gold at ears and wrist so small they read as absence. Baek Soo-jin, the Alliance. The word nobody would say. Soo-jin's eyes found Camille's and did something quick and unreadable. Took her in, the charcoal dress, the flat clinical shoes she hadn't changed, the nurse at the party, and then moved on, smooth as water closing. But when the uncle turned to gesture the last guests to their seats, Soo-jin leaned a few degrees toward Camille, and under the noise of chairs she said one thing, low, in English clean as glass. He watches you, not me. A pause the length of a breath. Whatever this is tonight, it isn't what they think it is. Then she straightened and was again exactly the woman in the ice-colored suit, smiling at Sung-wook, folding her napkin. Camille filed it the way she filed everything, where she could find it later, with the time attached. It isn't what they think it is. She didn't know yet whose side that put the woman on. She only knew a person didn't say a thing like that unless they were choosing something, and choosing something at this table cost more than it did at most. So this is her, the uncle said, in English, for the room, warmly. The nurse who has my nephew rearranging his whole house. He smiled at Camille, and the smile did not reach the wire glasses. Min-jun looks well. Better than he has in months. We should all thank you. Thank the boy, Camille said. He does the hard part. Modest. The uncle held her a moment, the way a buyer holds a coin to the light. And competent, I hear. My nephew tells me you found an irregularity with the pharmacy, a supply matter, he said. Supply matter. The way you'd name a stain you'd decided to ignore. Distressing. When the person you pay to be certain turns out to be less than certain. He was talking about Mercer. He was also, she understood, talking about her, testing whether the nurse who caught things would say too much across a table of strangers. Medicine keeps records for a reason, Camille said. I read them. That's the whole trick. The whole trick, Sung-wook repeated, pleased, as if she'd confirmed something. Reading. You'd be surprised how few people do it. He turned his glass a slow quarter turn. Adrian is a careful man. I've known him longer than my nephew has. I'd hate for a supply error to become an accusation. Errors can be corrected. Accusations leave marks. The candles stood between them. Camille kept her hands still in her lap, next to the boy's fist wound into her sleeve. I don't accuse, she said. I document. The two look alike to people who've never had to prove anything. Something moved behind the wire glasses. Not anger, worse, interest. He'd learned she wasn't easy. Men like him filed that away. Well, he said lightly, releasing her, we're grateful either way. The uncle turned to Taekyung, and something passed between the two men, old and cold, the whole history of an argument in one glance. Sit. Sit. Soo-jin has come a long way. Let's not make her stand. They sat. A hand set a plate in front of Camille she had no intention of tasting. Across the candles, Min-jun slid into the chair beside her and pressed his shoulder against her arm, small and warm, and she felt through the fabric how fast his own heart was going, the two of them carrying the same secret at opposite ends of the table. She looked once, only once, at the ceiling above them, at the direction of the stairs, of the far room, of the drawer with the false bottom and the card and the letter in a dead woman's hand. Then she picked up her fork and she smiled at the uncle, and she did not mean it. Under the table, without looking down, Min-jun's fingers found the edge of her sleeve and held on, and in her head, running under the murmur of the room and the clink of the uncle's glass, one line kept turning over and over, in handwriting that slanted hard to the right, written by a woman who had checked the numbers herself 2 years ago and paid for it. He was kind about it, which is how I knew to be afraid. She would go back up those stairs, tonight, if she could. She would find a reason, a forgotten bag, a sick boy, anything, and she would take the card and the letter out of that drawer and put them somewhere the walls of this house couldn't reach. The lawyer had said the weekend. The weekend was too far now. She knew that the way she'd known the vial was wrong, in the body first, the mind catching up. The problem was the arithmetic of the table. 12 people. The uncle who watched reading like a hobby. Staff at every wall. A boy who couldn't be left, and a father who read rooms as fast as she did and had already asked her once, on the stairs, what she'd found in his son's hands. If she rose too soon, she'd be a woman leaving in the middle of an alliance dinner. If she waited too long, morning would come, and whoever emptied that drawer on a schedule would find it disturbed, and a drawer disturbed was a person to remove. She weighed the two ends of it and hated both. Then she thought of the flat number on the page. Flat when it should move. And of a woman who'd waited to be sure and been sure too late, and the weighing stopped. Sooner, not safer, sooner. A server refilled the uncle's glass. Camille caught the house manager's eye down the length of the table and mouthed, later, that the boy would need to go up soon, that he tired fast. Groundwork. A reason built early so it wouldn't look built. The uncle lifted his glass and said something about family, about continuity, about the strength of the golden lion enduring through hard seasons, and the table lifted its glasses with him. Camille lifted hers. The wine caught the candlelight and threw it back red. Beside her, so quiet it was almost only breath, Minjun said, "You didn't keep the ring." "No," she murmured, glass still raised, eyes still on the uncle. "Some things you give back, you'll understand when you're bigger." "You put it back flat," he said. "It rocked before. You made it flat." She turned her head just enough to look at him. He was looking at his plate, 7 years old, saying the most dangerous thing anyone had said all night in the smallest possible voice. "That means you saw under it," he said. Camille set her glass down without a sound. Around them, the table laughed at something the uncle had said. The candles burned. The alliance sat in its ice-colored suit and smiled at a man who kept his dead wife's ring in a drawer over the thing that had probably killed her. "Eat your dinner," Camille said softly. "And after, you're going to be very, very tired." The boy nodded once and picked up his fork, and neither of them looked at the stairs again. The boy managed 4 bites before he set the fork down and let his shoulders go soft, the way children do when they have decided to be tired. Camille caught the house manager's eye down the length of the table and touched 2 fingers to her own temple, the signal they had agreed on. The house manager rose, murmured something to Sungwook about the child's rest schedule, and the old man waved a hand without looking up from his wine. Camille stood. She kept the movement small. "He's done," she said. "I'll settle him." Taekyung's eyes came to her across the candles. Something in them wanted to follow. She held his gaze 1 second, no longer, and turned Minjun toward the stairs with a hand between his shoulder blades. They were on the 3rd step when the front doors opened. Not the dinner guests' entrance. The service corridor, off the side of the foyer, the one that connected to the wing where Mercer kept his consulting room. 2 men in dark coats came through it first. Then Mercer, unhurried, a leather folio under his arm, his metal-framed glasses catching the chandelier as he crossed the marble. Camille felt Minjun go still under her hand. "Keep walking," she said quietly. They didn't get to keep walking. "Ms. Harper." Mercer's voice carried across the foyer without rising. He had learned, somewhere, how to make quiet reach. Before the boy goes up, there's a matter of his chart that can't wait for morning. The dinner table had gone silent behind her. She felt it more than heard it, the way a room stops chewing when it senses blood. She turned on the stair with Minjun tucked against her hip. "His chart is current. I logged it myself, twice today." "You logged something?" Mercer opened the folio against his forearm, flipped a page with 1 finger, and held it out at the distance a man holds a thing he expects to be believed. "The pharmacy portal disagrees. There's an administration recorded under your credentials at 4:10 this afternoon. The yellow dose. Off schedule, off protocol, and without a countersign." The words landed one at a time. She had not given the yellow dose in 8 days. "That's false," she said. "It's time-stamped." "Then the timestamp is false." Songwook set his glass down. The small click of crystal on wood was the loudest thing in the house. Camille came down 2 steps. She put Minjun behind her, on the stair above, where the banister boxed him in on one side and her body on the other. "Show me the entry." Mercer turned the folio. She read it from 4 feet, which was as close as he let the page come. Her name, her license number. A dose of the pale gold suspension, 4 milliliters, entered at 4:11 p.m., today's date. The digital signature line carried the abbreviation of her credentials. She had spent 2 days teaching a 7-year-old that the number is the only thing that doesn't lie. She looked at a number that was lying, wearing her name. I didn't make that entry. The system says otherwise. The system doesn't have a motive, Ms. Harper. People do. Mercer let the folio close. A nurse under a 1-week trial. A nurse who spent that week manufacturing a supply dispute to make herself indispensable. A nurse who removed a sealed vial from this house yesterday against every chain of custody rule she claims to worship. I moved that vial to an attorney with a signed seal and a photograph. You know that. I know a vial left the premises in your bag. He turned to Taekyung, and his voice changed register, became the voice of a man delivering bad news he takes no pleasure in. I've filed a concern with the state board. It's procedure. When an administration is logged outside protocol on a cardiac pediatric patient, I'm required to report it. Her license is under review as of this evening. The room did something Camille felt in her teeth. Taekyung had risen from the table. He came into the foyer without hurry, and the hurry he was not using was worse than any speed. The lion at his throat caught the light as he moved. He stopped beside Mercer, half a head taller, and looked down at the folio the way a man looks at a thing he is deciding whether to break. Say the number again, Taekyung said. The time. 4:11 this afternoon. Taekyung's jaw worked once. She was in this house at 4:11, with me, going over your invoices. Camille's chest tightened. That was true, and it was also the last thing she wanted said in front of Sung-wook, whose head had turned at the word invoices with the slow interest of a man filing something away. Then perhaps she stepped away, Mercer said smoothly. Perhaps someone entered it for her. The credentials are hers regardless. A license doesn't care who was standing where. It cares whose name signed the dose. Nobody signed anything, Camille said. The dose wasn't given. Draw a level. Right now. Tonight. His blood will show no 4 o'clock dose because there was no 4 o'clock dose. A level takes a day, Mercer said. The report is already filed, and in the meantime, I can't in good conscience allow the person under investigation to remain the child's primary caregiver. There it was, the whole shape of it, arriving at once. Not the vial, not the letter she hadn't yet pulled from the drawer upstairs. This. A number typed into a portal she couldn't reach, under a name she couldn't unsign, on an afternoon she'd spent proving him a liar. He had watched her build a record that lived outside the house, and he had reached into the one record that still lived inside it, and he had written her out of the child's life with 4 keystrokes. She understood, standing on the stair, that she had been winning the wrong game. Minjun's hand found the back of her scrub and closed on it. Song-wook spoke for the first time. He had not left his chair, and he did not raise his voice, and the whole foyer bent toward it anyway. Adrian, you're certain of this filing? I am, sir. Then it's out of our hands. The old man laid his napkin beside his plate, precise, corners squared. A board matter is a board matter. The family can't be seen interfering with a licensing review. It would look like exactly what the nurse has been building toward. He turned his fine glasses on Camille, and behind them his eyes were mild, and the mildness was the cruelest thing in the room. You understand, Miss Harper, for the boy's protection, until this is resolved, you can't be in the house. She understood him completely. He had defended Mercer at dinner. Now he was using Mercer's paperwork to remove the one person auditing the money. She could see the machine, and she could not touch a single gear of it, because every gear was labeled procedure, and procedure was the one thing she had spent her whole career refusing to break. Taekyung, she said. She kept her eyes on the man in the vest, not the man at the head of the table. Ask him one thing. Ask him who entered the dose. Who entered it? Taekyung said. Mercer spread his hands. The credentials. Not the credentials, the hands. Whose hands were on the keyboard at 4:11? Taekyung had stepped closer, and now the difference in their heights was a thing the whole room was watching. You said she might have stepped away, and someone entered it for her. Someone. You have a someone in mind, Adrian. You said it too easily. Mercer's mouth moved and produced nothing for a half second. It was the first crack Camille had seen in him all week, and it opened and closed so fast that only 3 people in the room caught it. Her, Taekyung, and, from the shadow of the dining room doorway, Baek Soo-jin, whose eyes had not left Mercer since he'd walked in. "The portal logs the credential, not the chair," Mercer said, recovering. "I don't speculate about chairs, I report doses." Taekyung's hand came up. Camille saw where it was going. Not the folio. Mercer's collar. The fist half-formed, the forearm tightening, the tattoo on it flexing as tendons drew up, and every guard in the foyer shifting their weight at once. "Don't," she said. She said it hard enough that his hands stopped in the air. "Don't touch him." She came down the last steps, put herself between the two men, one palm flat against Taekyung's chest. She could feel his heart going under her hand, fast and furious and useless. You put your hand on him, and you become the story. Right now, the story is a false timestamp. You hit him, and the story is a mafia boss who assaults the doctor who reported his nurse. That's the headline the board reads. That's the headline the TO wants. She dropped her voice under the room. "Look at your uncle's face. He's waiting for you to swing." Taekyung's eyes flicked to the head of the table. Sung-wook was watching his nephew's fist with the patience of a man who had set a trap well and had only to wait for the animal to finish walking into it. The fist opened. "Good," Camille breathed. "Good." Taekyung stepped back. His chest still heaved under her hand. She took the hand away. "Now," she said, to the whole foyer, in the flat, clinical voice she used for numbers, "here is what's true, and it will still be true tomorrow, when everyone's calmer. A dose was logged that was not given. The patient's blood will prove it. A vial that never existed in any pharmacy was measured into this child for 11 days, and I have the level, the pharmacy's own words, and the sealed bottle to prove that too, and none of it is in this house, so none of it can be typed away tonight." She looked at Mercer. "You can move my name off the chart. You can't move the boy's blood. Then the blood will exonerate you," Sung-wook said pleasantly, "and you'll return. In the meantime, you'll go." "In the meantime," Camille said, "he's alone with the man who's been poisoning his records. He's with his family, and his physician, as he has been for 2 years. The old man rose at last, buttoning his charcoal jacket. "Miss Harper, I'll ask you to collect your bag. The car will take you home." She did not move toward the door. She turned instead to the boy on the stair. Min-jun had gone the specific pace of a child who has understood more than the adults intend. His fingers were still knotted in the fabric of her scrub. She crouched to his level, the way she had on the first day, the way she had 100 times since, and she made her face be calm, because his was not. "Hey," she said, "eyes on me." He looked at her. "You remember what a real record looks like. 3 lines, he whispered. Date, number, name. And you check it yourself even when it makes the grown-up mad. Even when it makes me mad." She tucked a strand of his hair off his forehead. "There's a number coming tomorrow from your blood. It's going to tell the truth about today. I need you to remember that a number is coming, because grown-ups are going to say a lot of words tonight, and words aren't the number. Are you leaving?" The whole foyer heard it, the small, cracked voice of it. "I have to go home tonight. You said you'd be here in the morning." His face was coming apart now, the careful architecture of it, the thing his mother's death and his father's fear had built. "The first day, you told the lady you'd be here in the morning. You said you're not like the ones who leave during the nap." It went into her like a blade turned sideways. "I know what I said." "Then don't go." "Min-jun." She held both his hands. "I'm not leaving because I want to. I'm leaving because a man wrote a lie with my name on it, and I can't fight the lie from inside this house. I have to go where the papers are. Do you understand the difference? I'm not running during the nap. I'm going to get the number that proves the lie is a lie." His chin trembled. He was 7. The difference between abandonment and strategy is not a thing a 7-year-old's body knows, whatever his mind understands, and his body had decided she was the 5th nurse walking out the way the first 4 had. Behind her, Taekyung crouched too. He put his hand on his son's shoulder, and Camille watched him reach for the thing fathers reach for, the promise that stops the crying, and she knew before he opened his mouth that it was the wrong promise, and she could not stop it in time. "She's coming back," Taekyung said. "Do you hear me? She's coming back. I'll make sure of it. She goes tonight, and she comes back." The boy's crying eased at once, the way a child's does when the strongest person in the room hands them a certainty, and something in Camille went cold and still. She stood. Don't, she said. Promise him that. Taekyung looked up at her. I keep my promises. Not this one. You can't keep this one. Her voice had dropped to almost nothing, but it did not shake. My license is under review. That's not a door you can open with money, or with the size of you. A board doesn't care what you'll make sure of. If they pull it, I don't come back. Not to this house, not to any house, not to any child. You just told your son a thing you have no power to make true, and you told it to stop his tears, which is exactly the thing I have spent a week teaching him not to trust. The foyer had gone very quiet. You gave him a number that might be a lie, she said, to make him feel better tonight. That's what Mercer does. That's the whole disease of this house. Everyone hands the boy a comfortable lie and calls it protection. Taekyung came to his feet slowly. Whatever was in his face, it was not anger. It was worse. It was a man realizing he had done the one thing. Camille, I need to hear you take it back. He's 7. He's crying. He's crying because everyone he trusts eventually lies to him kindly. She was aware of Sungwook watching, of Mercer watching, of the whole rigged room drinking this in, and she did not care, because there was a child on the stair, and a principal she had bled for, and they had become, in this instant, the same thing. Tell him you don't know if you can bring me back. Tell him you'll fight for it and you don't know. Give him the true version. The true version is the only thing in this house that's ever going to keep him alive. Taekyung looked at his son. The boy looked up at his father with wet, hoping eyes, waiting to be told the comfortable thing again. And Camille saw the man weigh it, the crying child against the woman asking him to make the child cry harder for the sake of something the child was too young to spend. She saw how close he came. She saw the promise reload behind his teeth. He needs, Taekyung started. He needs the truth more than he needs to stop crying. She picked up her medical bag from where she'd set it by the newel post. Her hands were steady. She made them be steady. You won't give it to him, so I will. She crouched one last time. Minjeon, your father wants to bring me back, and he might not be able to. That's the truth. It's a hard one. A man tried to end my job with a lie, and lies are strong, and I don't know yet if I win. What I know is that I'm going to fight it with numbers, because numbers are the only thing that beats a lie. And whatever happens to my job, her voice caught, once, and she let it, because he deserved to see that it cost her too. You already have the most important thing I came here to give you. You know how to check. Nobody can take that. Not the doctor, not your uncle, not me leaving. You check the number yourself now. Forever. Say it. I check it myself, he whispered, even when it makes them mad. Especially then. She stood. She did not look at Taekyung, because if she looked at him she would see what leaving him cost, and she could not afford to see it in front of the men who were counting on it to break her. She walked to the door. Miss Harper. Sungwook's voice, mild, following her across the marble. Your professionalism does you credit. I'm sure this will all resolve. She stopped with her hand on the door. She did not turn around. The blood level will be back tomorrow, she said to the door. It will show no 4 o'clock dose. When it does, you'll all have to explain why a filing was made against a dose that never entered his body. Every one of you standing in this foyer heard me predict it before the draw. Remember that you heard it. She opened the door. The night air came in cold and she walked into it, and the doors closed behind her, and the gate would take 40 seconds, and she counted them the way she had counted them coming in, except that coming in she had been afraid of the men inside, and now she was leaving one of them upstairs, small, with her 3 lines gripped in his fist. The car idled in the drive. She did not get in it. She stood on the gravel and pulled her phone from the bag and, standing under the security light with her breath ghosting, she made the first call before the shock could set into something slower, not to the attorney. It was nearly 10. She called Sadie. Hemi? Her sister's voice, thick with sleep. It's late. You okay? I'm fine. Listen to me. Is the door locked? Yeah. Why are you? I might be home earlier than I thought for a while. Some days. It's a work thing. I'll explain tomorrow. If a man calls the house saying he's a doctor, saying anything about me and my license, you hang up. You don't answer his questions. You call me. A silence. Cammy, what happened? A man told a lie about me at work, and I have to untell it. That's all. That's the whole thing. She watched the mansion's lit windows, one of them the boy's. I need you to be careful for a few days. Can you do that? Yeah, of course. Her sister was awake now. Are you in trouble? Is it the money? Because if the job's gone, the job's not gone. It's under review. There's a difference, and I'm going to prove the difference. She said it to Sadie, and she said it to herself. Lock it. Keep your phone loud. I'm coming home. I love you. She hung up before her voice could do anything she didn't authorize. Then she stood a moment longer, because there was one more thing she had left undone, and it was gnawing at her. The letter, the memory card, the statements, the false-bottomed box in the room upstairs. She had come tonight to take them out before morning, and she was leaving with none of it, walking away from the single locked drawer in this house that held the proof of everything, leaving it in the one place the enemy could reach. She looked up at the second floor. She could not go back in. The moment the doors had closed, the house had become a place she was barred from. Not by locks, but by the things she had just told the boy about lies, that they are strong. Walking back in now to retrieve a hidden envelope from the boss's nightstand would hand Mercer the theft he'd already half accused her of. The vial in the bag. Now a letter from a dead woman's drawer. He would wrap her in her own fingerprints. The proof of Seyon's murder was 30 feet above her head, behind a false panel, and she had just lost the right to touch it. She got in the car. The door had barely shut when the front doors of the house opened again behind her. Taekyung came out onto the top step, jacketless, the vest dark against the lit doorway, and for a second she thought he would cross the drive and open her door and say the thing men say when a thing is falling apart. He didn't. He stopped at the edge of the light. His hands were open at his sides. He watched the car the way the boy had watched her from the stair, and she made herself look forward, at the driver's headrest, at the gate, at anything that was not the shape of him standing there wanting to fix it with the wrong tools. The driver looked at her in the mirror and said nothing and pulled toward the gate. 40 seconds. She counted them, and on the 11th second her phone lit in her lap. A text. Not a number she knew. 6 words. He kept the promise. I heard. She stared at it. Then a second text arrived under the first. The one you told him not to make, after you left. He told the boy you're coming back no matter what. Then he threw the doctor out of the house. S. Sujin. Camille read it twice. The gate swung open ahead of the car, the dark road beyond it, and she understood 2 things at once, and both of them turned her stomach. That Taekyung had chosen the comfortable lie the second she was gone, had looked at his crying son and done the thing she'd begged him not to do, because he was, at bottom, a man who could not bear to hand a child the truth. And that Baek Soo-jin, the strategic bride, the woman who was supposed to be the enemy's chess piece, had just texted her from inside the house to tell her so. She didn't answer. She turned the phone face down on her knee. Whatever was true tonight, this was true. She was outside the gate, her name was on a lie, the proof was locked in a dead woman's box she could no longer reach. A 7-year-old had just been handed a promise nobody could keep, and the only person who'd told her the truth about any of it was a stranger she'd been warned not to trust. The car turned onto the road. The mansion's lights fell away behind her. She picked the phone back up, and this time she opened the attorney's number, and she began, in the dark of the back seat, to type everything down. The timestamp, the filing, the 411 she'd spent going over invoices, the prediction she'd made in front of 5 witnesses about a blood level that hadn't been drawn yet. Getting it outside the house. The only thing she had left. The only thing she'd ever really had. She hit send as the car reached the highway, and somewhere behind her, in a room she was no longer allowed to enter, a small boy lay awake holding a folded sheet of paper with 3 lines on it, and a man stood at a window he wasn't looking through, and a doctor gathered his folio and walked out into the same night, already dialing a number that did not belong to anyone in that house. The lawyer called back before the car reached her block. Not a text this time, a voice, low and awake at 11 at night, telling Camille that the filing against her had a flaw he could already see. A state board complaint needed a timestamp. A timestamp needed a machine. And a machine, he said, always remembered who touched it. He asked her one question. Did she have anyone inside the house who could look at the doctor's computer without being caught? She thought of the woman in the ice-colored suit who had leaned across a dinner table to warn her. She said maybe. He said, get me the login history and the license fixes itself. She did not sleep. She sat at the kitchen table with Sadie's cereal bowls stacked in the sink and her phone face up. And at 6:41 in the morning, the level came back. Clean. Flat. No 4 o'clock dose in the boy's blood. She read the numbers twice, the way she'd taught him to. Then she photographed the report, sent it to the lawyer, sent it to the independent cardiologist he'd looped in overnight, and only after both confirmed receipt did she let herself press her palm flat against the table and breathe. The 4 o'clock dose Mercer had logged under her name had never entered the boy. The blood said so. The blood could not be edited from a locked drawer. At 7:02, her phone lit with a number she didn't know. She almost let it die. Then the text came through. 2 words, then a name. Lena Park. Pediatric cardiology. The independent cardiologist wasn't waiting for the lawyer to introduce them. She'd already read the level. She wanted to meet. Today. She had, she wrote, seen a flat curve like this one before, on a different child, 2 years ago, and she had never stopped thinking about it. Camille's hand stopped over the screen. She typed one word, whose. The reply took a full minute. She watched the 3 dots appear and vanish and appear again. I signed a death certificate I didn't believe, Dr. Park wrote. The mother brought the child in herself. Then the mother died first. I always wondered why the mother. Camille set the phone down very carefully, as though it might go off. They met at a diner off the interstate, the kind with vinyl booths and a coffee pot that never emptied, because Dr. Park said no clinic, no office, nothing with a badge reader and a log. She was younger than Camille expected, sage green blouse under a coat she didn't take off, a slim folder held flat against her chest the way Camille held her own med bag. You're the 5th nurse, Dr. Park said, sitting. I'm the one who checked. I know, that's why I came. She slid the folder halfway across the table and kept 2 fingers on it. 2 years ago, I was the covering cardiologist when Yoon So-yeon brought her son in, not the father, her. She had numbers written on the back of a grocery receipt. Dose, level, date. She'd done the math a home nurse should have done, and nobody had. The level was flat. The level was flat. Dr. Park's fingers pressed down. Right drug in the blood. Wrong bottle on the record. I flagged it. I wrote it up. And within a week, the family's private physician had my flag reclassified as a supply discrepancy, and my consulting privileges quietly ended. His name was on the letter that ended them. Adrian Mercer. Adrian Mercer. She finally lifted her fingers. Take it, it's copies. I keep the originals somewhere he can't reach. Camille opened the folder on the sticky table. The receipt was there, photographed front and back. A dead woman's handwriting, small and certain. The same hand as the letter in the false bottom drawer 9 meters above a boy's bed. Beneath it, a lab requisition Se-yeon had paid for out of pocket. Her own name on the billing line. Beneath that, the reclassification letter, Mercer's signature, and a date. She knew, Camille said. She knew, and she was careful. And careful wasn't enough, because she did it alone. Dr. Park wrapped both hands around her coffee. You're not doing it alone. That's the only thing that's different. Camille looked up. Why did you say the mother first? The younger woman was quiet a moment. Because a sick child on a bad bottle stays sick, she said. A mother reading grocery receipts starts asking who buys the bottle. One of those is a slow problem. The other one is a witness. Neither of them said the word. It sat in the booth with them anyway. Camille turned the receipt over in her fingers. Same small, certain hand. Same instinct. Write the number down before someone can tell you it doesn't matter. Why keep the originals 2 years? She asked. Why not walk away? Dr. Park refilled her own coffee from the pot the waitress had left. Because I signed the certificate. I put my name on a thing I didn't believe, and I told myself the flag I filed was enough, and then the flag disappeared and I let it. She set the pot down. You don't sleep the same after that. You wait. You wait for the one nurse who reads a lot number out loud instead of measuring what she's handed. Then you drive to a diner off an interstate and you find out she's real. I almost let your call die. I know. That's how I knew you weren't reckless. Dr. Park slid the folder the rest of the way across. Reckless people answer strange numbers at 7 in the morning. Careful ones make the phone earn it. Camille drove home with the folder zipped into the inside pocket of her bag, and while she drove, her phone buzzed against the console, and she waited until the next red light to look. Soo-jin. The message was a photograph. A computer screen, shot at an angle to catch the glare so no one could later claim it was staged. An access log. A list of remote sessions into a machine labeled with Mercer's initials and a clinic suffix. And one line highlighted with a thumbnail's shadow. A session opened yesterday afternoon, from an address that was not the house, at 4:09 p.m. 1 minute before the dose that was logged under Camille's name at 4:10. A second text arrived under it. His office computer talks to another computer every quarter, same day the money moves. I followed the cable. It goes to the annex. The annex is the uncle's. Then, I can get you the addresses on both ends. But once I pull them, he'll know someone looked. So whatever you're going to do with it, do it fast. S. Camille read it 3 times. The light turned green. A horn went off behind her. She didn't move for a second. The pipe with 2 ends had 2 ends now with names on them. Mercer sold the numbers. Seong-wook bought them. The remote session at 4:09 was the uncle's man reaching across a cable to type a dose into a boy's chart under a nurse's name. So the nurse who checked would be gone before the level came back. She pulled through the intersection. She called the lawyer. She said, I have the login history. He said, then, you have your license. She said, keep it, don't file yet. He asked why. Because if I file quietly, they fix one machine and disappear, she said. I want it read out loud, in the house, with all of them in the room. The lawyer was silent long enough that she thought the call had dropped. There's a dinner, he said finally. The bake engagement, rescheduled for tomorrow. The uncle's pushing it. He wants the alliance signed before the board rules on you, so the family looks stable when they declare the father unfit to run it. Declare him unfit. That's what the quarterly data was buying, Miss Harper. 2 years of a boy who wouldn't get better, a widow who died asking questions, a father too grief-blind to check anyone, a man who can't keep his own son alive can't be trusted with the house. The nephew steps aside. The uncle steps up. The doctor keeps his hospitals. He exhaled. The wedding is the last brick. Once Baek Soo-jin signs, the board vote has a majority. Camille watched the road. Then I'll be at the dinner, she said. You're barred from the house. I'm barred as a nurse, she turned onto her street. Nobody barred a guest. She called Taekyung once, that night, and she made it short because the last thing between them had been a promise she'd told him not to make, and he'd made the second she was gone. I know what they were buying, she said when he answered on the first ring. And I know who was selling. Don't act. Don't hit anyone. Don't fire anyone. Do nothing until tomorrow's dinner, or you'll scatter them and lose the only room they'll all be standing in. A pause. Then, Lo Wee. You left. You promised him I'd come back the second I was out the door. You chose the comfortable lie the way this whole house chooses it. She kept her voice even. I'm coming back tomorrow. Not because you promised. Because I finished the work. There's a difference, and your son already knows it even if you don't. She heard him breathe. What do you need? He said. Seat me at the table. Don't warn your uncle. And bring me the ring box from the drawer before the guests arrive. Don't open it. Just carry it down. Why the ring box? Because your wife left the rest of the evidence inside it, Camille said, and she left it for whoever finally checked. That's me. But it should be your hands that open it in front of them, not mine. The line was quiet. Camille, he said, just her name. Tomorrow, she said, and hung up before either of them could turn it into something the night couldn't hold. The gate took 40 seconds, the way it always had, and she counted them out of habit, and this time she counted them in a charcoal dress with a folder against her ribs instead of a med bag. 12 places again at the long table, Seong-wook at the head, gray suit, gold tie, reading the room the way he always read it. Baek Soo-jin in ice blue, hands folded, a pen resting by her plate, where a contract waited under a leather cover. Mercer at the far end, folio beside his wine, comfortable, because the nurse was gone, and the board was moving, and the level report had already been buried under a supply memo he'd filed himself. Camille walked in on the arm of no one. The room went quiet by degrees, the way rooms do when the person who's supposed to be absent is suddenly standing in the doorway in the wrong clothes. Mercer stood halfway. She's not permitted. She's my guest, Tae-kyung said, and did not raise his voice, and the whole table heard the floor shift under the sentence. Seung-wook set down his glass. Nephew, this is a family dinner. The board meets Thursday. Sentiment now is, sit, uncle. Tae-kyung pulled out the chair beside his own. Camille sat. On the table in front of him, a small, worn velvet box he had carried down himself and not opened. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Baek Soo-jin picked up the pen by her plate, and everyone looked at her, because the pen was the whole reason for the dinner, and she turned it once in her fingers and set it back down on the wrong side of the contract. I'm not signing, she said. Seung-wook's head turned slowly. Soo-jin, I was told this was an alliance. She folded her hands. I've spent 3 weeks in this house being told a great many things. I watched a man argue that a boy's medicine was a scheduling problem. I watched a nurse get walked out for reading a number out loud. She looked at Camille, then back at the uncle. I don't marry into a house to be the last brick in someone's floor. Find another wall. The pen stayed where it was. Seung-wook's jaw tightened by a fraction, the only crack the man allowed himself. He had built the evening around that pen. A signature, a witnessed alliance, a family that looked whole enough to survive a vote about the father's mind. The pen lying on the wrong side of the contract was a floor, with a plank missing, and everyone at the table heard the wood not hold. You've been coached, he said to Soo-jin. I've been watching, she answered. There's a difference. Ask your nurse. Camille stood. She did not raise her voice either. She'd learned that from watching the uncle do the opposite of everything worth doing. 2 years ago, Yoon So-yeon took her son to a hospital herself, she said, and paid for a blood level out of her own pocket because she'd done the arithmetic a nurse should have done, and the number was flat when it should have moved. She flagged it. The flag was reclassified as a supply discrepancy within a week. She laid the first page on the table and slid it toward the center. By the man who signed the reclassification, Dr. Mercer. His signature, that date. Mercer's fork stopped against his plate. 11 days ago, I read a lot number off a bottle in this house, and it didn't exist, Camille went on. Not a backorder, not a bridge supply. It was never dispensed to any patient by any pharmacy, and the boy's blood was perfectly, impossibly steady on a bottle that couldn't exist, which only happens when someone measures the wrong bottle on purpose to make it behave like the right one. Second page to the center. The pharmacy transcript. The cardiologist's confirmation. Right dose, wrong bottle, every day. For 2 years and then again for 2 weeks. This is an accusation, Seung-wook said quietly, and accusations leave marks. I don't accuse, I document. She set down the third page without looking away from him. Yesterday at 4:10 in the afternoon, a dose was entered into that boy's chart under my license number. I was in this house at 4:11, reviewing Dr. Mercer's invoices with your nephew. He said so, in this foyer, in front of 5 people. So I asked the only question that mattered. Not whose name, whose hands. She placed Soo-jin's photograph flat on the linen. At 4:09, a remote session opened Dr. Mercer's office computer from an address that is not this house. 1 minute before the dose. The same computer talks to one other machine every 3 months. On the exact day, a rounded transfer lands in an account. I followed the cable. She looked up the table. It ends in your annex, uncle. The room did not breathe. Mercer stood. The chain of custody on that report is sealed, signed across the seal, photographed with a date, and sitting with a lawyer who doesn't work for anyone here, Camille said. So is the bottle? So is the level that came back this morning flat, with no 4 o'clock dose in it, because there was no 4 o'clock dose. You logged a lie into a child's blood, doctor. The blood didn't cooperate. She turned to Tae-kyung. Open the box, she said. He opened it. The thin gold ring sat where it had always sat. He lifted the felt with 2 fingers the way Camille had, and the false bottom came up on its worn finger notch, and he took out what his wife had hidden and never told him, because he had stopped letting anyone check anything after his own father. A memory card. Bank statements with quarterly transfers, rounded, dated to the same days Mercer billed the house, the same days the uncle's account received, and a cream envelope marked A.M. Tae-kyung read the letter standing up. The table watched him read it. He read the part where his wife wrote, "If you're reading this, it's because I stopped being able to." He read the part where she wrote, "He was kind about it, which is how I knew to be afraid." He read the last line, the one that said, "If the boy is ever with someone who really checks, this is for that person, not for you, because you would try to forgive him." When he finished, he did not shout. Camille had asked him not to, and grief had finally taught him the difference between force and weight. He set the letter down. He looked at his uncle for a long moment. "She died asking who bought the bottle," Taekyung said. "You bought the bottle." Seong-wook adjusted his glasses. "You can't prove intent from a wire transfer and a grieving woman's note." "I don't have to." Taekyung picked up his phone from beside his plate and turned it face up, and the screen was already dialed, already connected, already listening. The lawyer, on the line the whole time. "It's not my proof. It left the house days ago. The board doesn't vote Thursday on whether I'm fit. It votes on you." He set the phone down between them like a card laid flat. "As of tonight, every payment to that man is frozen," he said. "As of tonight, you're off the fund. The annex account, the quarterly line, all of it. Sealed by the same lawyer, copied to the same cardiologist, filed with the same board you were going to use on me. You wanted a house that couldn't check itself." He stood to his full height, and for once he didn't use it to loom, only to be seen. "My wife checked, my son checks, my nurse checks. You're the only one in this family who was counting on no one ever looking." Seong-wook rose. Two men in dark coats had come to the doorway, and they were not, Camille understood, the uncle's men anymore. "You'll regret trusting a home nurse over blood," Seong-wook said. "She is the reason my son has blood," Taekyung said. They took the uncle out through the service corridor, the same corridor Mercer had come through the night he'd tried to burn Camille's license, and the door closed behind them very quietly, and this time everyone in the room heard it. Mercer was still standing. "I have hospitals," he said, "to no one, to the table, to the memory card, contracts, boards of my own. You can freeze a fund. You can't." "The independent cardiologist you had removed 2 years ago read the level this morning," Camille said. "Dr. Lena Park. She kept the originals. She's already sent the 2-year-old flag and the new one to every board you sit on, with a dead woman's lab requisition attached. By the time you reach your car, doctor, you've lost the hospitals. That's not a threat. That's just the paperwork moving faster than you for once." He looked at her the way a man looks at a lock he'd assumed was decorative. "You're a home nurse," he said. "You've been here 2 weeks. 12 days. She almost smiled. "Long enough to check." He gathered his folio. His hands weren't steady. On his way past the end of the table, he stopped, just for a second, beside the empty chair where Min-jun usually sat, and something old moved across his face, the thing Camille had caught weeks ago and never named, the look that had passed between the doctor and the boy, and she understood it now, all at once, and chose not to say it, because some things you leave for the family to find in the letter, and the letter was already open. He left, a car took him, nobody walked him out. She found the boy at the top of the stairs in his blue cardigan, awake past his bedtime, holding a folded sheet of paper with 3 lines on it. Date, number, name, the way another child would hold a toy. He'd heard the door close. He'd heard both doors close. "Did you check them?" he asked. "I checked them." "All the way?" "All the way to the number." She sat on the step below him, so his eyes were above hers for once. "The way you taught the third nurse to ignore. The way your mother did it on the back of a receipt." His face did something complicated. "You put the ring back flat that night, but you saw under it. I saw under it, and I put it back exactly, so nobody would know I looked." She tucked a strand of his hair off his forehead. "Then I came back and looked out loud, in front of everyone, with the door open. Careful in the dark, loud in the light. You do both, depending on which one the truth needs." He leaned his small weight against her shoulder. He didn't flinch at the touch. He hadn't flinched at the touch in days. "Uma would have liked you," he said. Camille held very still. "She already did the hard part," she said. "I just finished the sentence." Her license was restored in 11 days, which felt, she thought, like the house paying back its own number. The board read the level, the login history, the 2 years of a flag someone had buried, and the complaint against her didn't survive the first meeting. Dr. Lena Park signed on as the boy's cardiologist, and the yellow bottle never came back, And Min Jun's cheeks kept their color, and the pediatric recovery went the way recoveries go, when the medicine is the medicine and nobody is buying anyone's slow decline by the quarter. Sadie stopped locking the door against strange men who called themselves doctors. The lease got paid, the med bag went back into the modest car, and the modest car kept coming through the 42nd gate, except now the gate opened in 12, because someone had told the guard to stop counting her like a stranger. It was on a Tuesday, weeks later, in the same upstairs hallway lined with photographs, that Taekyung stopped her with a hand that barely touched her elbow and held out the worn velvet box. The false bottom was empty now. The evidence lived in a vault. What was left inside was just the ring. His grandmother's, then his wife's. Thin gold, honest weight. He tried to give you this weeks ago, Taekyung said. I'm not going to. Not tonight. Camille looked at the box. She didn't reach for it. You've spent 2 weeks proving you can't be moved by a paycheck or a threat, or my son's crying, he said. So a ring right now would just be one more thing pushing at you. And I'm done being a man who pushes at the people who check. He closed the box in his own hand. I'm going to keep it, and I'll ask you the day you can say no to me without losing anything. No contract, no license, no boy who needs you. The day it costs you nothing to walk away. That's the only day the answer would mean anything. Camille was quiet a moment. The hallway held its photographs. The house, for the first time since she'd walked into it, was not hiding anything from itself. That's the smartest thing you've said since the portico, she told him. The corner of his mouth moved. I had a good nurse. She started down the hall toward the boy's room, toward the sheet of paper with 3 lines on it, toward the recovery that was finally just a recovery. At the door, she looked back. He was watching her the way he'd watched her from the edge of the light the night she left, except this time he wasn't promising anyone she'd come back. This time she just had. You finally learned something, she said. And she went in to check the numbers, out loud, with the door open, the way the truth had needed all along. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been the one who noticed the truth first, the mismatched detail no one else wanted to see, and paid for saying it out loud? When you cared for someone the powerful treated as replaceable, did they ever learn that permanence is no substitute for respect? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, truth, and loyalty, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.